Welcome to Sally Fox audiobook. The hero turned into a potato and the world fell to ruin. Chapter 26 to 50. Books 25 chapters. Memo 32,133 word stopwatch. 129 minute read. Novel notes. 1,374 words. Morning arrived, and the desert returned to its peaceful state once again. After a night of intense studying, even though Liu Ji genuinely loved what he was learning, he still felt mentally exhausted. He even considered turning back into a potato to rest for a bit. However, seeing the vast expanse of yellow sand, he couldn't find any suitable soil for taking root. I should bring along a flower pot the next time I go out. At least I would be able to plant myself inside and get some sleep, thought Liu Ji to himself. Speaking of which, familiars and such could be summoned with magic. If he could get one to carry a flower pot, then that would be even better. Yang, on the other hand, seemed quite energetic and didn't plan on sleeping. According to her, a mage of her level could manage several days with just a night's sleep. As they moved, she kept looking all around, trying her best to find seaberry trees. Evidently, she genuinely wanted to be a responsible and good teacher. Unfortunately, luck wasn't on their side, and they still hadn't encountered a single seaberry tree after walking for an entire morning. At midday, when the heat was at its peak, they decided to stop and rest for a bit. Yang used an earth spell to create a double-layered sphere, which accommodated everyone. Previously, doing this would only provide them with temporary relief from the heat, but now with Liu Ji around, they could stay in the double-layered sphere and have lunch before continuing their journey. As for why it was double-layered, without an insulating layer, the inside of the sphere would be no different from an oven. Due to the party's frugality, their food supplies were still sufficient. However, their water reserves were more worrying. Traveling in the desert consumed a lot of water, and since they hadn't encountered many seaberry trees, their water supply was running low. Yang was aware that their water reserves were now less than one-third of which they started with. It seems we must find a seaberry tree within the next 2 days, Yang said after lunch, pouring a small cup of water from a water skin and handing it to Mervant. Are our water reserves running low? Mervant took the water and sipped a little. Let's be more attentive these next few days. Hey, big cat, did you hear that? Keep your nose sharp from now on. Ah? Oh, all right. Osu rubbed his nose sheepishly. What he didn't dare to say was that he had vaguely caught the scent of seaberry trees twice before, but he hadn't mentioned it since the scent was faint and because he didn't really want to eat seaberries. Looks like I can't avoid the fate of fruits, after all. Osar sighed. TL note, Osar says guagwe, which means fruits. Guagwe will definitely hit you if she heard you saying that, Mervant said subtly. What do you take guagwe for? Osu rolled his eyes. Even a cornered rabbit will fight with teeth and claws. How do you know guagwe won't bite? Mervant shrugged. I don't know whether she will bite, but if she does, it would probably be you, Yang chimed in. Liu Ji couldn't understand the banter of those three, so he could only silently recite the incantations he had learned while zoning out. Unsure whether it was because he was silently reciting the spells or because he was too spaced out, Liu Ji started to feel a sense of confusion about whether he was a human or a potato. Or rather, to be precise, he could tell the difference. After all, when he was a potato, he couldn't hear or see anything. The only sense he got was constantly stretching his roots out under the soil. Just like now, Liu Ji could feel a certain sensation spreading out. When it spread to a certain point, suddenly, Liu Ji felt as if something had pricked him. In an instant, his expanded awareness retracted completely. He just felt dizzy and looked in that direction blankly. What's wrong? Are you okay? Yang noticed Liu Ji's unusual behavior and poked his face, asking in incantation. It's nothing. Liu Ji smiled, waving his hands dismissively. Despite saying this, the subtle, indescribable sensation still lingered. It was like having candy and finding the taste familiar, yet being unable to recall exactly what it tasted like. That feeling just now? Strange, what was it? Miser gazed upward to the right, frowning slightly. Is that fellow coming already? No, it doesn't seem like it. It kind of feels familiar. Mr. Miser? Mr. Miser. Kalidora waved her hand in front of Miser. Who? Oh. Miser snapped back to reality, smiling apologetically. Sorry, I spaced out for a moment. What were you saying? Is it a little cold here? The temperature here might be quite different from above. No, we aren't afraid of the cold, Kalidora said, waving her hand dismissively. We were just talking about how incredible it is that you managed to cultivate a farm under this desert. At that moment, the three of them were descending the spiral staircase to the underground of this ancient city. This was the first time Miser had brought them here. When they initially heard about an underground farm, they thought it would be some kind of underground garden. But upon arriving, they were amazed to see a super large underground cavern spanning over thousands of square meters. Now, they finally understood where the roast lamb they had eaten earlier came from. This space was fully equipped with water sources, pastures, fields, and orchards, with the entire ceiling adorned with sunstones emitting daylight. It was a genuine underground farm. "Oh, you're asking how this place came to be," Miser said, stroking his chin. "Well, it wasn't actually established by me, it's a remnant from the past." "The past?" Kalidora asked, puzzled. "Do you mean before this place became a desert?" "Yes. I've mentioned before that this land was once lush and beautiful," Miser lamented. "But unfortunately, some events occurred, forcing people to leave. Those who refused to leave chose to escape underground." "Escape underground?" Girunini frowned. "Do you mean those underground dwellers are?" "I'm not sure who exactly you're referring to, but there are indeed many similar spaces beneath this desert," Miser explained. "However, as far as I know, most of these underground spaces are abandoned. In the end, such spaces are more like shelters. If given a better choice, no one would choose to stay underground indefinitely." "But aren't you?" Kalidora began. "I usually stay above ground, don't I?" Miser shrugged. "However, starting today, you may need to stay down here for a while. You want us to hide here to avoid the tyrant's minions while you face them alone?" Girunini frowned. "That's unacceptable. If there's a fight, we should face it together." "Well, you're partially right. I do intend for you to hide here." Miser's lips curled into a slight smile. "But you're wrong on 2 points. First, it's not his minions you're avoiding but the tyrant himself." What? "You are saying that he will come personally?" Kalidora's pupils contracted. "No, that's impossible. It's inevitable, just a matter of time." Miser shrugged. "Think about it, if sending minions doesn't work, eventually he'll have no choice but to come himself." "No, Mr. Miser, you don't understand," Kalidora said anxiously. "Those who came before were just the weakest." Miser raised a finger to interrupt her, then gently waved it. "No, I understand perfectly. Those were just the weakest cannon fodder," Miser said. "But believe me, he'll come. And soon, he'll come in person." "Well, what's the other point?" Girunini asked. "You said I was wrong about 2 things. The other point," Miser said, "is that I'm not the one who's going to deal with him." "Then who?" Girunini asked in confusion. Miser smiled and only said 2 words, "A calamity." If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon god's lack of conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,233 words. In the desert, Liu Ji and his companion seemed to have good luck today. Sometime in the afternoon, Osa managed to catch a faint scent of seaberry trees in the air. It was just that the location of the seaberry trees was slightly off their intended path. They couldn't confirm their intended direction a second time, and if they first went to find the seaberry trees and then continued in their original direction, their route wouldn't closely parallel their initial path. Thus, to avoid deviating, they decided to leave Mervant behind as a landmark, while the other 3 went to find the seaberry trees. "It doesn't seem far, and we'll definitely be back before dark," Osa said as he walked briskly through the desert. Liu Ji followed closely behind him, feeling no pressure in keeping up. In fact, knowing he had a chance to taste water element sashimi made him want to move even faster. The only one unhappy with the speed was Yane, who, due to her slower pace, had to be carried in the back basket. "If tilde it's tilde not tilde far tilde don't tilde walk tilde so tilde fast tilde," she protested, her voice vibrating from being shaken so much. Despite her complaints, she understood Osa's reason for maintaining this pace. In the desert, the concept of distance could sometimes be deceptive. Sometimes not far was indeed close by, but other times it could be inaccurate. At least when using a landmark, say a mountain, one would know they're heading in the right direction, but relying solely on scent in a desert of only sand that stretched into the horizon, gauging the distance was tricky. Still, as it turned out, Osa's judgment was correct. Even with their accelerated pace, it took them about 2 hours to find the few seaberry trees. A round trip would take over 4 hours, and had they moved any slower, they might only return to Mervent after dark. There had already been 2 consecutive blood moon nights, and no one could be certain if there would be a third. They definitely couldn't leave Mervent alone outside overnight. "I'll pick the berries, you guys collect water, and be quick," Osar said, lifting his back basket. With agility that didn't match his sturdy build, he climbed to the top of the tree and began gathering sea berries. Yane reached into her magical space and pulled out several shriveled water skins, stuffing them into Liu Ji's arms. While it was impossible to determine how much water they could extract from the air around them, they needed to collect as much as possible. Liu Ji understood what Yane was planning. He quickly opened each water skin and held them together with their mouths facing up. Yane drew out her staff from her magical space as well. Although this was just a basic spell, having the staff as a medium would enhance the effect. She chanted a brief incantation, which Liu Ji understood meant water element condense, but she also added some complex auxiliary words. Before long, a fist-sized sphere of water formed in front of Yane. This sphere of water kept expanding until it reached the size of a basketball. However, once it reached this size, the water sphere's growth slowed significantly and then stopped after expanding a bit more. Yane pursed her lips, seemingly dissatisfied. But for now, she focused on filling the water skins. She pointed her staff, and the floating water sphere split into 3 streams, filling 3 water skins. The auxiliary words in her spell were meant for this. As they finished filling the first round of water skins and Yane was about to summon a wind to circulate the air before going for another round, Oso, hanging from the tree, suddenly exclaimed, "Huh? Strange, it looks like someone has already picked the berries from this tree." "What?" Yane looked up in surprise. "Are you certain?" "The best sea berries on this tree are gone, and the cuts are fairly fresh," Oso replied. "Could Calidora and the others passed by here earlier?" "I'm not sure, but it's certainly possible," Yane said, a rare glint of excitement showing in her eyes. "If they really entered a special area that disrupted the Heartling Disk, then we might be close to finding that place ourselves." In the desert, Mervent sat cross-legged on the sand, serving as a human landmark. His constantly shaking right leg revealed his impatience. Or, to be precise, he had been very impatient all along, itching to rush in the designated direction. Now, forced to stay behind as a marker, his impatience grew. However, despite his urgency, he remained rational and knew what needed to be done. "Sai, hurry up. Didn't this big cat say it wasn't far?" "It's already been over 2 hours," Mervent muttered to himself to pass time, keeping his voice low to avoid his mouth drying. Just as he was brooding, his keen hearing picked up some noises from a distance. Instinctively, Mervent assumed it was Oso and the others returning and nearly jumped to his feet. But as a seasoned swordsman, his reflexes quickly brought his thoughts back into focus. The footsteps were unusual, 6 of them, appearing out of nowhere. He recognized this rhythm immediately. Almost reflexively, black dragon wings unfurled from his back, and his form blurred as he blended into the desert sands. Silently, he flew toward the source of the noise. Cresting a tall sand dune, he saw the source of the disturbance. 6 individuals stood before a slowly dissipating portal, a shield guard with a massive shield and warhammer, a scout with twin blades, a masked mage, an archer with a short bow, a necromancer holding a lantern, and a warrior clad in black armor with a heavy sword, all of them with crimson capes. An elite squad, led by a commander. Mervent's eyes narrowed. Damn it, why are they here? Despite their smaller numbers, this squad's configuration was leagues above the cannon fodder squads. Mervent had seen a similar 6-person squad easily overrun a stronghold defended by hundreds of Dragonblood warriors. He knew that facing this squad with their current setup would be suicide. Fortunately, his racial ability granted him strong concealment, and the 6 hadn't noticed him. But then, Mervent's blood ran cold as he saw the squad heading in the direction he least wanted them to go, the direction where his link to Calidora had been cut off. Mervent instinctively wanted to rush out. Not to fight them but to find Calidora before they did and get her to safety as quickly as possible. However, he stopped after taking a single step. He couldn't abandon Yane and the others. Without his directions, they might get lost in the desert. Worse, if they followed his direction, they might run into this elite squad from behind. After some hesitation, he waved his hand, creating an illusion of himself at his original spot, pointing toward the direction out of the desert. "Sorry, though this is a bit presumptuous, I'll bring Calidora back. You guys head back and wait for me." With that, he turned around, maintaining his concealment, and flew as fast as he could toward his target direction. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon god's lacquer. Conquering Otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,233 words. Beneath the seaberry tree, Yane, wielding her staff in one hand, raised her other hand in front of her where a clump of pure, clear water floated. The water constantly changed shape, at times forming regular polyhedra, other times crystallizing, sometimes clustering, sometimes dispersing. This is pure elemental spirit. Liu Ji recited the complicated term using incantation. Yane nodded as she took Liu Ji's hand, made him spread his palm, and placed the water cluster in it. The water cluster indeed floated in Liu Ji's hand, continuously changing and fluctuating along with him. Staring at the strange water cluster, Liu Ji gulped. Can this thing really be eaten? It wouldn't cause indigestion or puncture my stomach, right? He tried poking the water cluster. It was soft, like regular water, and his fingers easily passed through. Looks to be harmless. Seeing Liu Ji study the pure water spirit like a child, Yane grinned and started to think about teaching him more about pure elemental spirits. But her daydream was interrupted when she saw Liu Ji bring his hand up and open his mouth wide. No, you. Yane reached out, but before she could say anything, Liu Ji's mouth had already enveloped the water cluster and swallowed it with a gulp. Yane was stunned. It wasn't just Yane. Osar, who had just got down from the tree, was equally dumbfounded. Did he just eat pure elemental spirit? Osar asked, why died? Heck, is that thing even edible? It isn't inedible, it's just a cluster of water, but I've never seen anyone eat it. Yane was at a loss. He's not a 3-year-old child. Who would have thought? Meanwhile, Liu Ji smacked his lips and thought to himself, why doesn't this water element have any taste? No, taste doesn't matter, what's important is. Oh. There it is. It's here. Liu Ji felt that impulse. He glanced at Yane, smiled, and responded to the impulse. In the next moment, Liu Ji vanished in front of Yane's eyes. An instant later, Liu Ji reappeared, so quickly that even his clothes didn't even fall to the ground. As soon as he reverted, Liu Ji inhaled sharply, and then started gasping for air. Good heavens, for a moment there, he thought he was going to die. During his transformation, it felt like he had been thrown into an oven with temperatures over 1,000 degrees, having all the moisture in his body being sucked dry in an instant. Was this caused by the transformation? No, it didn't seem right. Liu Ji quickly realized it was due to the environment. He finally understood why most places in the desert had no water elemental spirits. The environment here was pure hell for them. Initially, he thought that without water elementals around, he could turn into a water elemental himself and create unlimited water in the desert. However, now it seemed that idea was a bit naive. Hey, buddy, are you okay? Osar noticed something was wrong with Liu Ji and quickly went over to him, rambling on as he checked Liu Ji's condition, not caring if the latter understood. You're a grown man. How could you just eat random things? You can't just put anything made by magic into your mouth. Damn. Yane stared at Liu Ji in disbelief. Did I just see wrongly? See what? Osar asked, still rubbing his paw on Liu Ji's back. No, that would be too incredulous. Forget it, let's just assume I'm mistaken for now. I'll study it later when we get back, said Yane. She went in front of Liu Ji, examining him, and asked in an incantation, body, okay. I'm fine. Liu Ji waved his hands repeatedly. Although it was uncomfortable when he turned into a water elemental spirit, he felt better after changing back and was recovering after taking a few deep breaths. Now thinking it over, Liu Ji realized that magic elements, being similar to air in nature, would naturally be in an unconscious state under normal circumstances. So, was the lack of water elemental spirits in the desert because they all fled? Obviously not, it only meant that most of the water elemental spirits in the desert had perished. Yane had to use specially prepared water as a medium to summon the pure elemental spirit, whereas he transformed directly into a water elemental spirit in the desert. The fact that he survived was thanks to his conscious awareness, allowing him to sense discomfort. It was a rash decision indeed, Liu Ji thought to himself. Next time, I'll try this in a place with water. Well, as long as you are okay. Let's head back. Yane patted Liu Ji's shoulder. She then took all the sea berries from Osar's backpack and stored them in her magical space. After that, she climbed into the basket herself and said, if we dawdle any longer, Mervant, given his impatience, will definitely have something to say. Mervant moved rapidly. In just 30 or so minutes, he had left the elite squad far behind, their silhouettes no longer visible. Not that they were chasing him, they were merely maintaining their regular marching pace. However, the further he flew, the more uncertain he felt. With his senses fully extended, he detected more of the tyrant's minions' presence ahead, but these presences were faint as if they were already dead. The question was, why were they dead? Could Calidora and the others have defeated them? If so, why had the link between them disappeared? Could Calidora be injured, perhaps so severely that her presence was almost undetectable? Or maybe they had found a way to hide. How long could they hide in this desert? Would they have enough supplies? Could they have been without water and food for days? Various worrisome thoughts crowded his mind, making him extremely anxious. All he could do was move faster and faster still. And then, city walls suddenly appeared before him. Or rather, not directly in front, but about 100 or so meters away. But at Mervant's current speed, whether it was 100 or 200 meters made no difference from if it were right in his face. Despite reacting immediately and attempting to brake, his high-speed travel caused him to crash straight into the wall. Accompanying a loud boom was a large hole in the city walls. The three people sitting in the terrace of a watchtower, sipping tea, were startled and jumped at the sudden noise. Strange, had the pesky flies arrived so quickly? Miser turned to look. No, it seems to be a person. A person? Calidora's heart skipped a beat, and she quickly leaned her head out. Seeing the familiar figure shakily rise from the dust, she froze for 2 seconds, rubbed her eyes, and then froze again for another 2 seconds. Then, she abruptly leaped straight off the watchtower. Her white dragon wings unfolded behind her, and she traced a graceful arc in the air before diving into the arms of the figure. Mervant, still dizzy from his collision with the wall, was immediately struck by a secondary impact. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. Time Really Not the Demon God's Lacquer Conquering Otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,179 words. 2 hours after picking the sea berries, Osar, carrying Yane in his back basket and followed closely by Liu Ji, finally approached their departure point. In the distance, Osar spotted a dark figure standing on a sand dune. He quickened his pace and strode over, patting the figure on the shoulder with a grin. Hey, brother, sorry for the wait. The trees were much farther than we thought. Before he could finish, the figure turned its head. Its face, however, was featureless, just a round, dark void. With a poof, Osar's fur stood on end, making him look significantly puffier. This fellow actually went ahead. Yane peeked out from Osar's back basket and tugged the fur on Osar's cheeks. Speaking of which, how many times have you been scared by Mervant's clones? This thing just looks so creepy that I can't help it. Osar awkwardly scratched his chest. Since he left a clone, then we should follow the direction it's pointing. With that, he started to move in the direction which the clone was pointing. No, stop. Yane tugged Osar's fur hard. The direction is wrong. That is the way out of the desert. That idiot must have encountered a serious issue. He must have been in such a hurry that he forgot I left a guide beacon before entering the desert. Then we need to find him quickly. Osar panicked. We should. Crap. The compass is with him. Stop. Don't panic. Why do you guys all act the same? Can't you stay calm? Yane slapped Osar's big face. We entered the desert in a straight line, and now he's pointing in the direction we started from. Which way do you think we should go? Oh, right, it must be this way. Osar suddenly came to a realization and was about to start running off. That's why I told you not to rush, you big fool. Yane quickly clutched his large furry head, reining him back with great effort. Who? Osar looked at Yane with wide, innocent eyes that were filled with confusion. Mervant is no lone wolf. If he didn't want us to follow him, it's not because he's trying to show off. Yane frowned while thinking aloud. Firstly, there must be a compelling reason for him to act alone without waiting. Most likely something related to Calidora. Secondly, if he doesn't want us to follow, it means he doesn't want us to travel the same path as him. What sort of scenario in such a barren desert do you think could call for this? Osar paused, frowning in contemplation. Finally, he asked, are you saying it's the tyrant's minions? Yes, and probably more than one squad. Yane nodded. Either he's being chased. but with his stealth abilities, it's unlikely he'd be discovered. Most likely, those scoundrels are heading toward Calidora, and he's gone ahead to find her. He doesn't want us to run into them while following after him. Damn, if that's the case, it's really tricky. Oso rubbed his temples. We can't just follow him directly. No other choice, we can only take a detour. Yane shrugged. But without a compass, it's easy to get lost in this desert where everything is the same, Oso retorted in worry, exasperated. No, don't misunderstand, I don't mean a detour above ground, Yane said while pointing to the sand around them. We'll go underground. Underground? But we can't breathe under. Oh. Osar stopped mid-sentence and came to a realization as he saw Liu Ji. Yes, exactly, Yane said, smiling as gazed at Liu Ji. We have him. Liu Ji, who couldn't understand anything and was suddenly on the receiving end of stares from his companions, was bewildered. He could only scratch his head with a silly smile and tilted his head as if trying to make a question mark pop out. Beneath the ancient desert city, Mervant lay on a wooden bed. Beside him, Calidora, wielding her staff, moved her other hand glowing with white light over Mervant's rib cage. Ah, it hurts. Yes, the bone there seems to be slightly fractured. Mervant winced and grimaced. Sorry, Merv, I got too excited. Calidora said, sniffing. No, it's not your fault. I was flying too fast and accidentally crashed into the city walls, Mervant said while he struggled to lift his hand and gently pat Calidora's head. Looks like this is the companion you ladies mentioned previously. Miser came over. Ah, yes, Mr. Miser. This is Mervant, one of our companions. Also, he's... Calidora took Mervant's hand and smiled. He's also my lover. Jirunini, seated at the side, shivered and quietly turned away. For an innocent Lalafell, or rather, for the Miffy race, such a scene was a little too much. Oh, that explains it. No wonder you were willing to brave the desert again to find him. Miser leaned against the wall, smiling at Mervant. Hello, I'm Miser, the master of this place. Ah, hello, Mervant greeted. Are you saying you are the master of this city in the desert? Yes. Why? Do I not look the part? Miser quipped. No. I just never imagined. Honestly, I never thought that there would actually be a city in this desert. Mervant laughed sheepishly. Everyone who stumbles upon this place says the same thing. Miser shrugged. But despite the city's concealment measures, you are the first to crash right into my city walls. Ah, that's because I was in a hurry. Oh, right. Mervant suddenly remembered why he had rushed over. Mr. Miser. There's trouble. The tyrant's minions are heading this way. Yeah, they've been coming for a few days now, Miser said dismissively, the corners of his lips curling. First there were 12, then 24, then 48. How many are there this time? Let me guess, around 120. No, it's different this time. The ones coming aren't those grunts, Mervant exclaimed agitatedly. This time, it's an elite squad, led by a black-armored commander. They're dangerous, far more so than even 200 grunts. Oh. I thought it was that fellow himself when you said it's different. But it's still minions as always. Miser smiled, still completely unbothered. Oh right, when will they arrive? Very soon. I think they... Mervant was interrupted by a sudden, intense rumbling from above the underground space. Oh, looks like you don't need to tell me. They're already here. Miser chuckled. Mr. Miser, you... Mervant began, but seeing Miser's complete calmness, he didn't know what to say. Relax, kid. Enjoy some time with your lover. I'll handle them, Miser said, patting Mervant on the shoulder before heading to the door. No need to trouble that guy today. It's time I stretched my legs a bit. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon god's lacquer conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,153 words. SSHHH, SRRKKK, SSHHH, SRRKKK. A wriggling invisible barrier moved through the sand deep underground. With a daylight spell above his head, Liu Ji's hair gleamed in a verdant green glow. While he didn't understand why the light source was placed directly above his head, making him resemble a haloed bodhisattva, he found it pleasantly warm and didn't mind. Furthermore, traveling underground felt much better than walking on the surface. Firstly, he didn't have to walk himself, and secondly, he could watch the sands flowing around him, like he was a visitor at an aquarium. This unique experience of moving through a sea of sand wasn't something that could be experienced anytime. Just that there weren't any fishes in this sea, only bones. Occasionally, they'd come across a strangely shaped skull, and watching it slowly scraped by the barrier was a tad eerie. While Liu Ji marveled at this particular scene, he suddenly felt the earth around shake violently. Yane, maintaining the spell, frowned and exchanged a glance with Osar. With a whirl of a staff, she picked up the pace. The two of them realized that a battle had already begun not far from where they were. Before the city gate, a black-armored commander stood alone atop a high dune, his crimson cape billowing in the wind. Clutching a heavy sword, he looked on indifferently as his squad fought the stone sentinels below. Dang! A crushing punch of a stone sentinel struck the thick shield of an elite shield guard, producing a resonant, bell-like hum. Behind the shield guard, an arrow flew in an arc and struck the stone sentinel square in the chest. In the next moment, explosive energy erupted from the arrow, pushing the stone sentinel back several meters. And this attack left many tiny cracks on the stone sentinel's chest. As one stone sentinel was repelled, two more attacked the shield guard from the sides, launching a punch from the left and a kick from the right. Faced with this pincer attack, the shield guard remained unmoved. Or rather, he lacked the capability to show emotion. He thrust his shield forward, ignoring the attack from the right. Using his shield, he deflected the punch from the left, then followed through with a hammering blow to the left sentinel's head, knocking it back several meters. On the other side, as the right stone sentinel's feet was about to connect with his head, a black barrier suddenly appeared between the contact point. The kick struck the barrier, sending black ripples across its surface and making it vibrate intensely, but the barrier itself remained unbroken. In the next moment, numerous large stone spikes shot up from the ground all around, targeting the stone sentinel. The stone sentinel shifted from offense to defense, shattering two stone spikes and deftly dodging the others while retreating 10 meters away. Stone sentinels that were forced back had no time to regroup before the black-robed necromancer raised his bone staff. Dark waves spread rapidly across the ground, and a black goo climbed up the legs of the stone sentinels. Realizing the danger, the stone sentinels leaped to evade, repositioning themselves while seeking the next opportunity to strike. But then, several golden bowlers suddenly flew out from an unknown direction, spinning and wrapping around the stone sentinels. In midair with no leverage, the stone sentinels tried to use their hands like blades to cut the bowlers' cords. However, the golden ropes were unexpectedly soft and sticky like glue. Instead of being cut, the ropes adhered to the guardians' hands and then completely bound them. Meanwhile, a scout who had been hiding in the shadows suddenly charged out, throwing his curved dagger. The weapon, attached to a long chain, arced through the air, encircling the three stone sentinels. Then, he threw out another chained curved dagger from his other hand. The two blades crossed, tightening the chains, and as he landed, the three stone sentinels were pulled close and bound together. The ground began to tremble then, and a giant stone hand, with fingers several meters long, burst from the earth beneath the stone sentinels, gripping them tightly. Not far away, a mage chanted an incantation loudly, slamming his staff into the ground. The giant hand clenched with sudden force, intent on crushing the stone sentinels, and the ensuing shockwave sent sand and dust swirling in all directions. The stone sentinels struggled to resist, but the sticky bowlers hindered their movements, leaving them powerless. Okay, that's enough. It will be a hassle for me to fix if they really break. At this moment, a voice rang out from the city gates. Miser, with his crystal staff, leisurely strolled out from the city gates. There's already a hole in the wall from someone crashing into it today. If you people give me any more trouble, I won't sleep well tonight. As he spoke, he walked past the giant hand. With a light wave of his hand, the massive stone hand shattered like a Prince Rupert's drop, breaking into tiny pieces of dust fragments that rained down. The stone sentinels fell to the ground but remained tangled in the sticky bowlers, struggling and rolling about. Miser stopped in front of the intruders. He looked up at the sun, then turned to them and asked, "I don't have much time. So, who wants to go first?" Before he even finished, the entire squad simultaneously sprang into action. The scout vanished into the shadows while the mage began chanting an incantation. An arrow shot by the archer was already in flight as the necromancer directed the black goo toward him. Meanwhile, the shield guard advanced with his shield up, protecting his squad and giving them room to maneuver. Unfortunately, the time he could buy was extremely limited. Just like taking candy from a baby, Miser casually grabbed the shield guard's shield, easily pulling it away. Then, as if tossing a frisbee for a dog, he casually threw it toward the archer. Shield and arrow collided in midair, the energy from the arrow exploding and kicking up a dust cloud. The archer instinctively thought that the violent explosion would stop the shield and drew another arrow to fire. However, his hand had barely reached his quiver when the rapidly spinning shield emerged through the dust, flying into his abdomen before he could react. The massive kinetic energy made the edge of the spinning shield like a heavy battle axe, instantly disemboweling the archer and shattering his spine. Afterward, his entire body was caught in the shield's spin, carried away into the distance, leaving behind a trail of shattered bones and mangled flesh. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon gods lacquer conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,377 words. With just that casual strike, the battlefield at the city gates fell silent as if time had frozen. The black-armored commander standing on the sand dune slightly raised his head, his grip on the heavy sword tightening. However, he still did not move. The shield guard, who had suddenly lost his shield, appeared momentarily stunned, staring blankly at Miser for a full 2 seconds. Miser met his gaze and tilted his head slightly, smiling warmly. In that instant, the shield guard appeared to snap back to reality or had perhaps spotted an opening. His muscles tensed, and he swung his hammer at Miser's head with all his might. Clang! The hammer didn't face any resistance as it struck the side of Miser's face before shattering into tiny fragments. The powerful recoil numbed the shield guard's arm and threw him off balance, yet it didn't leave a single mark on Miser's face. Weak forehand, a lack of precision on the backhand. Since you've lost your weapon, it's high time you exit the stage, Miser said as the end of his staff hooked the shield guard's heel, flipping the latter to the ground. The shield guard tried to roll and get back up, only to find the staff's tip already at his face. Squelch! Hard skull was pierced through easily by the sharp end of the staff as if it were tofu, instantly taking the shield guard's life. And then, naturally, the staff's end was pulled out. Miser's action was so casual as if he was just taking a stroll and had accidentally poked the shield guard's head with his staff. Who's next? Miser, standing in front of the elite squad's remaining members, lifted his chin. Hurry up, you. You guys still have a chanting mage. If no one stops me, I'll have to go over and twist his head off out of respect. Once Miser said that, the black-armored commander tightened his grip on his sword once more. Yet, he still didn't move. Miser glanced at him, grinned, and started walking slowly toward the chanting mage. At this point, the other two finally couldn't hold back any longer. The necromancer raised his staff, spreading black goo, and malformed abominations crawled out of the mire, roaring as they charged toward Miser. Miser raised an eyebrow, casually swatting away the abominations with his staff. In the next instant, he appeared behind the necromancer. The necromancer turned around in shock, but before he could react, Miser snatched the bone staff from his hands and struck the former across the face with his own staff. The necromancer was sent flying, spinning 720 degrees in the air before crashing into the distant sand with a thud. Judging by the caved-in side of his face, he was likely already dead. Miser glanced at the crystal staff in his hand, flicking off the black goo in disgust. Why haven't these disgusting necromancers died out yet? Only you guys love flinging crap at people during a fight. Before he could finish, a figure suddenly sprang out from the black goo where the necromancer had been standing. The scout had somehow melded into the goo. His dual daggers were now sharp spikes, shooting for Miser's eyes. Seeing this, Miser swung the bone staff to meet the attack head-on. In the next moment, the sharp spikes pierced through the fragile bone staff, but the powerful recoil shattered the scout's entire arm bone, leaving him helpless as the bone staff, with the spikes embedded, drove into his own face. Bam! The staff broke, and the spikes were driven into the scout's brain. With a dull look of fervor in his eyes, he fell to his knees and collapsed in a pool of blood. I have to admit, you did surprise me, Miser said coldly. It's the first time I've seen someone willing to hide in a necromancer's cesspool. Throwing aside the broken bone staff, Miser turned his sights back to the chanting mage. Well, looking at this speed, it'll take a few more minutes before the incantation is complete. Miser glanced again at the black-armored commander in the distance. However, the black-armored commander still didn't move, merely observing everything indifferently. Still not making a move? What's with this guy? Miser wondered. It was understandable if he had been watching the cannon fodder fight to gather intelligence previously. But now with only a fragile, clearly struggling mage left, the fact that he still wasn't taking action was perplexing. While still musing, Miser strolled over to the chanting mage and examined him closely. The mage, holding his staff, displayed the same dull and fanatical look as the others, chanting his incantation without any typical reaction to an enemy being so close. Miser glanced again at the black-armored commander, then raised his right hand high. The black-armored commander stared at Miser and finally seemed to react, slightly raising his heavy sword. However, he soon stuck it back into the ground. Miser frowned and brought his right hand down. He struck the mage squarely on the face. The mage's unfortunate head, unaccustomed to such treatment, spun several times on his neck before falling to the ground with a thud. With the mage down, Miser turned his gaze back to the black-armored commander, lifting his chin in challenge. Now that the last one was dead, Miser wanted to see how this foe would react. The black-armored commander stared at Miser in silence for a long time before finally raising his heavy sword slowly. He raised his sword behind him, then did a half kneel and turned half of his body to the side. Seeing this posture, Miser felt something was off. And in the next second, it became clear that Miser's intuition had been right. The black-armored commander clasped his heavy sword onto his back, then with a powerful push of his legs, launched himself off the ground like a cannonball, dashing away in the opposite direction from Miser. That's right, the opposite direction. He was fleeing. Miser now understood why the commander hadn't acted early. This fellow must have been planning his escape while the fight was ongoing. Miser's lips twitched as he watched the retreating figure of the commander shrink. It was like having saved a strawberry on top of a cake for last, only to have it suddenly grow legs and run away. But soon, he started laughing. So be it if he ran. Miser's target was never the small fry but the person behind them all. That so-called tyrant was the main dish. A pre-meal appetizer wasn't really all that important. Run well and tell your master what you saw, Miser muttered. I'll be waiting for him. Not too far away, the heads of Liu Ji and his companions poked out of the sand like three prairie dogs. Did you all see that? Yane murmured. Yeah. Osar gulped. He's strong, and that was a commander he scared off. Yes, incredibly strong. Yane nodded. And he was wielding a staff, yet he didn't use a single spell at all. Liu Ji was completely baffled. He didn't understand what he had seen or heard, but he did think that the guy in black armor, who acted all cool and then ran away, looked pretty pathetic. So, what do we do now? Osar asked quietly. Do you think he's a friend or foe? How should I know? Yane replied. I didn't even think there'd be anyone here, let alone a whole city. There's nothing strange about that. Everyone who comes here says the same thing. In fact, this is the third time I've been told this in recent times. A sudden voice startled the three of them. Turning around, they saw that Miser had somehow appeared behind them. Hey, don't be nervous. I don't eat people, Miser said with a smile, extending his hand to them. Traveling in this desert isn't easy, right? How about coming into the city for a bit? I'll treat you to some shaved ice. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon gods. Lacquer Conquering Otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,290 words. In the barren desert, the black-armored commander was frantically fleeing. Unlike cannon fodders, he, as a commander, possessed greater critical thinking and more comprehensive judgment capabilities. In other words, those soldiers would throw their lives away meaninglessly, but he wouldn't. At first, he did plan to let those expendable troops fight while he gathered intelligence for the sake of increasing his chances of success in battle. However, he couldn't even lift his sword. Faced with that eerie ashen-skinned man, the commander couldn't muster the courage to confront him. Bottomless strength and that casual slaughter. It made the commander feel as if he was facing his king. Return, information. He muttered in a language he hadn't used in a long time, fleeing as fast as he could toward the teleportation point from which his squad had come through. That teleportation point should still have some energy left, probably enough to get him back to the royal city. As long as he could get back to the royal city, Suddenly, the black-armored commander stopped in his tracks. He realized that he would surely die if he returned to the royal city. The king never forgave any deserter. Even if he was a so-called commander, he was still just a pawn to the immortal king, one that could be expended as and when. Even if all the pawns were used up, the king could wait decades, centuries, or even millennia to produce a new batch of pawns. The king never cared about waste. The king was the eternal king. The black-armored commander suddenly realized that he was destined to die. Fleeing meant death, and not fleeing also meant death. However, he didn't want to die. He wanted to live. That's right. He wished to live, which was only natural. Why? Because he was a commander, his life was meant to be used for more valuable purposes and not just wasted like this. Was that right? Perhaps it was. He shouldn't waste his own life, he shouldn't crush his own skull out of anxiety, nor should he jump off a cliff into an abyss out of boredom. Because he needed to give his life for the king, so he had to go on living. However, from his perspective, swinging his sword at the ashen-skinned man was no different from jumping off a cliff into an abyss. And returning to the royal city meant that the king would surely crush his skull. What to do? What should he do? Flee? No, there was no way to flee. The king was the sky. The king was the world. The king was everywhere. The king was omnipotent. He couldn't flee. The king would find him and crush his fragile skull bit by bit. However, he wanted to live. Not for the king, but for himself. Bam! Without any warning, the black-armored commander's head exploded. Like a firecracker reaching the end of its fuse, it burst into a spray of blood. With a thud, the headless body slumped to the ground in the direction of the royal city, completing his life's final act of submission. In the distant royal city, the tyrant, who was resting on his throne, opened his eyes. The tyrant sensed that one of his inferior commanders had just lost his life. What the commander had transmitted back in his final moments was extreme fear. To be honest, this was quite rare. Since the death of the last Grand Arcanist, Rhine, at his hands, it had been a long time since anything terrified his commanders. The desert separating the continents, huh? Interesting. I'll have to go see it for myself, thought the tyrant as he shut his eyes once more. Having just completed a deep-sea marathon pursuit that lasted for a full 2 centuries, he decided to give himself a break and take a short nap. A reception hall within the ancient desert city. Mervin's injuries seemed to have largely healed, and he was recounting to Calidora about their journey and experience. Jirunini sat on Osar's lap, talking to him while stroking his facial fur. Osar didn't mind, and let her do as she pleased. Yane leaned by the window, gazing outside and seemingly pondering while occasionally taking a bite from the cup of shaved ice she held. As for Liu Ji, he was seated in front of Miser, staring at the latter intently. Miser had already introduced himself and explained the situation to everyone. At first, nothing seemed amiss to Liu Ji, who was listening too, but then he suddenly realized something. He could understand the words this person was saying. Liu Ji was certain that this man wasn't speaking in a language he knew, yet he could understand it as if there were subtitles. I be damned. Miser was also scrutinizing Liu Ji. He could sense a familiar aura from the latter but was unable to pinpoint what it was. After quite a while of silence, Liu Ji tried speaking in Mandarin. Hello, can you understand what I'm saying? Eh? Miser looked surprised when he heard Liu Ji speak. Liu Ji's language was something he had never heard before. Wait, it's not that I haven't heard it before. This pronunciation doesn't match any language system in this world. I'm 90% certain this isn't a language from this world. Suddenly, Miser realized where that sense of familiarity came from. You don't understand, huh? Seeing Miser's lack of a reaction, Liu Ji reckoned that Miser didn't understand and quickly switched to apologizing in incantation. No, wait. You don't have to use incantation. Miser put up a hand to stop him. I can understand what you are saying. Eh? Liu Ji was taken aback, then his eyes lit up in surprise. Eh? You are able to understand me? You speak Mandarin too. Oh, so this language is called Mandarin. Unfortunately, I don't actually speak it, Miser said. But even if I don't speak the language, I can still understand it, and can even make you think I'm speaking Mandarin. Eh? Really? That's amazing. Liu Ji was flabbergasted. No, compared to me, it's you who is even more amazing. Miser rubbed his temples, licked his lips, and then, as if proving his point, Liu Ji distinctly heard him speak in Mandarin. You are probably a hero, Yongve, right? Liu Ji tilted his head in confusion. Yong. Swimmer? Oh, I can swim, is that what you mean? TL note, the term used is Yongve, which means brave person, but Liu Ji misinterprets brave for swim, which has the same pronunciation. No. Let me phrase it differently, Miser continued in Mandarin. First of all, you are probably from another world, right? Liu Ji was startled and instinctively thought, how does he know? But in the next second, he realized that his own language, which didn't exist in this world, being understood by someone who could understand all languages, meant that such a conjecture could be correct if there had been similar instances before. Seeing Liu Ji's stunned reaction, Miser smiled and said, "It seems I guessed correctly." "Oh, right, in your original world, are there stories about heroes saving the world?" "Ah, yes, quite a lot actually." Liu Ji nodded. "But recently, the demon kings in those stories are either lawless or big-breasted babes." "Wait. Hero? You mean me?" "Yes, you," Miser said rather subtly. "And it seems you've already retired. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon god's lack of conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,372 words. Yane was somewhat surprised. While the others might not have noticed, she, who was always vigilant of her surroundings, did notice that Liu Ji was chatting with Miser. Moreover, they were conversing in a language that she had never heard before. But it made sense when she thought about it. Liu Ji was from the other side of the desert, so it was reasonable for someone here to speak his language. Watching Liu Ji and Miser converse back and forth, Yane unconsciously hugged her knees, curling up on the chair. She didn't know why, but her heart felt a little uncomfortable. She had only known Liu Ji for little over a week, after all. She didn't know Liu Ji's name and just took it upon herself to teach Liu Ji incantation and wanted to be his teacher. In the end, doing all this was just to reminisce about her own past. Sometimes, she wondered if Liu Ji even needed to learn magic at all. He could turn into a potato, a giant bear, and even, if she wasn't mistaken, she had previously seen Liu Ji transform into a pure elemental spirit. Such an ability was unheard of. Even druids, who prided themselves on shape-shifting, were never as extraordinary as this. With such ability, learning magic seemed superfluous. Perhaps the only reason he was learning incantation was to communicate with them. Now that he had found someone he could communicate directly with, would he still be willing to learn incantation? Yane sighed. Reuniting with comrades ought to be a joyous event, yet she felt a bit. TCH, what am I thinking? Yane sighed. It would be best if Liu Ji was willing to stay with them. But if he decided to leave, Yane had no reason to stop him. If that day ever came, she could just take on another student in the future. It wasn't a big deal. The priority now was to gather all their scattered comrades, cross the desert, find a new land, and continue with training and research. And someday. Crunch! Yane bit down hard on a spoonful of shaved ice. She stared out the window into the distance. Over that side, there was someone she must kill. Even if it cost Yane her life, she would kill her. I'm the hero? Liu Ji stared at Miser in astonishment. Yes. Miser nodded. To be precise, a retired hero. Liu Ji blinked several times. What's the difference? The difference is that the blessing of the world that a hero should have isn't on you, Miser answered. What does that blessing do? Liu Ji asked. It can make your luck extremely good, allow you to communicate with people without language barriers, and eventually learn a universal communication method like mine, Miser explained. It also makes people naturally want to help you, and even if you rummage through their cupboards or break their jars, they won't mind. Women you meet on your journey will inexplicably develop a liking for you, quickly becoming your close friends. Before you become strong, it helps you unconsciously avoid life-threatening disasters. Liu Ji looked at Miser, completely bewildered, and after a long pause, he exclaimed, "Damn! Didn't that sound amazing? Wasn't that the legendary main character's halo? Did he have such a thing before? And why hadn't he felt it? Wait, could the reason the bear didn't climb the tree to kill him back then been due to this blessing? So as a retired hero, you..." Miser stroked his chin while scrutinizing Liu Ji all over. "You haven't saved the world yet, have you?" Well. Liu Ji scratched his head. To be honest, after arriving in this world, I turned into a potato. Potato? Miser was stunned. Why did you become a potato? I'm not really sure. I just wanted to change, and then I did. Liu Ji scratched his head. In fact, I've been a potato until recently. I don't really know what happened during that period. Miser pressed a hand against his temple, looking at Liu Ji in confusion. He pondered for a moment, then asked, "Then, do you know how long that period was?" Not exactly. Liu Ji shrugged. My sense of time became vague after turning into a potato. I guess maybe 10 or 20 years. Just 10 or 20 years. Miser stared at Liu Ji incredulously. Then, 30 or 40 years. Or what's an appropriate amount to add? Liu Ji asked in return. Do you think we're bargaining over groceries? How can I add the time for you? Miser retorted, half amused and half exasperated. I really don't know. Liu Ji spread his hands in defeat. What can I do? I didn't have a phone or calendar. Well, it doesn't really matter. Miser shrugged. It's just unfortunate that you lost your communication ability. But I see you're learning incantation. Yeah, that girl over there is teaching me spells, Liu Ji said sheepishly. It's a bit embarrassing to have such a young girl teaching me to speak, word by word. Girl. Miser raised an eyebrow, giving Yang a subtle glance before looking back at Liu Ji. Well, it's a good thing there's a language barrier. If she understood what you just said, she might not be so willing to teach you anymore. Who? Why? Liu Ji was taken aback. Because she's already in her 20s. Although she's still young, her magical prowess is quite high. Referring to her as a girl is somewhat inappropriate. In fact, if someone took it the wrong way, it could even be seen as an insult. Miser took a sip of his tea. But it's not your fault for being mistaken. The Ifrit race is peculiar. Pure-blood Ifrits are usually between 3 to 4 meters tall, but when they interbreed with other races, they end up looking like her, appearing human but much shorter than the human average. A mix of Ifrit and Miffy could be as short as 60 to 70 centimeters. Whoa. Thank God there's a language barrier. Liu Ji exhaled sharply. Yes, indeed. Miser chuckled. You should know, finding someone willing to teach you incantation is rare. If I couldn't sense that the blessing of the world isn't on you, I'd think she was influenced by it. Miser took another sip of tea and continued, teaching someone incantation is extremely troublesome. It heavily depends on talent, and almost every student's teaching plan has to be different. The deeper you delve into it, the more complex it gets. Even Grand Mags, who often have hundreds or thousands of students, only consider a few of them true students, the rest are just labor. He patted Liu Ji's shoulder. So, you understand how lucky you are to be a student of a powerful mage, right? But? Liu Ji scratched his head. Although she seems very dedicated to teaching me, she has no reason to. We've only known each other for a week. I think maybe she's just focusing on me because she doesn't have other students right now. No, the length of time you've known each other doesn't matter. I can see she truly cares about you as her student, Miser said, nodding in the direction of Yang. Look, she's already feeling jealous and sulking just because I'm talking to you. I've seen that expression many times when I was a student and the Grand Arcanists fought over me. So, I won't keep you any longer. Go on, it would be rude if my actions made my guest unhappy, Miser said, patting Liu Ji on the back. Wait, I have one more question, Liu Ji said. As a retired hero, shouldn't I do something for the world? No, you don't have to do anything. Miser shrugged. As you said, you're a retired hero. You have no blessing, no responsibility. You can do whatever you want. Just like me. And compared to me, you have much more freedom. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon god's lack of conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,457 words. Liu Ji had countless questions he wanted to ask after meeting the first person in this world he could communicate with smoothly. However, he understood that the being called Miser was right. For reasons unknown, Yang treated him very well indeed. Well, the thing was that he didn't know what to do if he went to Yang. This place didn't seem suitable for lessons, and his proficiency of incantation was far from sufficient for smooth conversation. Glancing around, Liu Ji noticed that the shaved ice cup in front of Yang seemed to be empty. His eyes lit up. This was his opportunity. He quickly grabbed 2 cups of shaved ice from a nearby cart, then hurried over and sat on the seat in front of Yang. Yang was momentarily surprised to see a cup of honeydew shaved ice appear in front of her. She looked up and saw Liu Ji. Liu Ji grinned, then scooped a spoonful of shaved ice and put it into his mouth. Delicious. No wonder it was a treat he had been craving throughout the foray in the desert. Yang looked at Liu Ji, her face riddled with hesitance. She opened her mouth intending to ask why Liu Ji had come looking for her so quickly. But when she opened her mouth, she didn't know what to say. It wasn't because of Liu Ji's insufficient incantation proficiency, it was just that regardless of how she phrased it, it would either sound like she was asking Liu Ji to leave or like she was being petty. But she didn't wish to drive Liu Ji away, nor did she intend to throw a tantrum. Seeing Yane staring at him silently, Liu Ji felt a bit at a loss. He didn't know what to say or how to say it, so he scratched his head awkwardly and managed a goofy smile. Yane watched Liu Ji's silly expression but didn't say anything for a while. Then, she scooped a spoonful of shaved ice and offered it to Liu Ji. Liu Ji was startled by the shaved ice right in front of his face. He eyed Yane, then the spoonful of shaved ice while scratching his cheek in hesitation. Then, he finally opened his mouth wide. But just as Liu Ji was about to eat the spoonful of shaved ice, Yane turned the spoon around and put it into her own mouth. Liu Ji froze momentarily. His brain, though, worked at lightning speed, and with smooth movements, he quickly scooped a spoonful of his own shaved ice and stuffed it into his mouth. While he managed to cover it up, the atmosphere became a little awkward. Liu Ji was completely wooden, confusion written all over his face as he looked toward Miser for help. However, he found Miser covering his mouth, snickering hysterically. What Liu Ji didn't know was that Yane's mind was even more blank than his. She didn't know what she had done or why she had even done that. Was she trying to test something with this action? Or was she trying to ascertain something? Or was she reminiscing over her former teacher again? No, her teacher had never fed her anything. After all, he was a teacher and not her father. Damn it! Yane cried out inwardly, rubbing her head in frustration. She scooped up another large spoonful of shaved ice and violently stuffed it into her mouth as if to vent her frustrations. Nearby, Calidora tilted her head slightly as she observed the interaction between Liu Ji and Yane. Callie? What's wrong? Mervant asked. I've been meaning to ask, Calidora whispered. Who is that person with the green hair? Oh, him. I forgot to introduce him, Mervant replied. We don't know his name yet. We actually met him on the other side of the desert, and we don't understand his language. Right, you mentioned you had crossed the desert. Calidora sighed. Sigh, Jirunini, and I must have veered off course, causing you to come back for us? Well, it can't be helped. If we weren't lucky enough to be with Yane, I would have gotten lost too. Mervant shrugged. Anyway, never mind that. Oh, you might not believe this, but when we first met him, he was actually a potato. A potato? What do you mean? Calidora blinked several times. Is that some new metaphor you learned? No, not a metaphor. Mervant waved his hand dismissively. He was literally a potato, a giant potato. The leafy part was over 3 meters tall, and the root system was huge. Back then, the big cat even dug a bunch out, planning to roast them, but then he suddenly turned into a human. That's Calidora mused. Well, considering it's the other side of the desert, it isn't all that surprising that there are things we don't know about. But it seems like he's quite close to Yane. Well, Yane initially said she wanted to find a guide. Mervant shrugged. But since they couldn't communicate, Yane started teaching him incantation. That means he's now considered Yane's student. Calidora was somewhat surprised. I'm not too sure either. Mervant scratched his head. Since they can't communicate, I doubt they've discussed it. And you probably noticed that Yane is acting a bit strange. She started teaching a stranger magic from scratch for the sake of getting a guide, then got mad at me, saying she wanted to reminisce about the past and asked me not to interfere. Calidora was slightly taken aback upon hearing this and, after a short time, muttered, Is that so? That's strange indeed. What does that mean? Mervant asked, puzzled. However, Calidora didn't answer Mervant's query but continued mumbling to herself, but that doesn't seem completely right. Oh, Mervant, did anything else happen between them before you came? After that? Let me think. We ran into a standard squad. We took them down, and that guy even helped Yane kill one of the scouts, though he threw up like mad afterward. According to Yane, it was probably his first time killing someone. Wait, he helped Yane take down a scout. Calidora frowned. How did he manage that? Oh, it appears he can also transform into a bear, Mervant explained. He smashed that scout to a pulp with one swipe of his paw. He's actually quite capable in a fight. No, that's not the point. It was his first time killing, but Yane let him have the chance to strike. Calidora shook her head. No, Mervant, this doesn't make sense. The situation couldn't have been as relaxed as you're saying. There were only 3 of you. Be honest, what was the actual battle situation? Mervant mulled, stroking his chin. After a few seconds of silence, he said, "All right, there was a bit of a problem with my strategic plans. We were short on manpower, so I tried to use the height difference of the cliff to buy Yane time to cast her spells. However, the enemy scouts had climbing gear." "So you are saying, the enemy scouts got close to Yane while she was chanting?" Calidora's voice rose a pitch higher. "Ah." Yane had prepared traps in advance. Mervant said. "But a standard squad has 2 scouts, and Yane actually let someone who had never killed before help her take one of them down." Calidora pressed her hands to her temples. "Ah. I finally understand." "Ah. Sorry." Mervant rubbed his nose. "That was indeed a tactical mistake on my part. No, your approach wasn't wrong. I wouldn't have expected the scout's gear either, but you missed something important." Calidora sighed. The fact that Yane gave him the chance to strike means she had no traps left to use. And, although I don't know the exact details, from this I can deduce that the situation you and Osa were in at that time wasn't ideal enough for Yane to cease her incantations immediately. That means, if she wanted to deal with the second scout, she would have to stop her chanting. But she surely hesitated at that time. You should know that hesitating for even a second on the battlefield can have serious consequences. If he wasn't there. Calidora suddenly stood up. "Callie." Mervant was stunned. "What are you?" "I need to go thank him," said Calidora, smiling. "If not for him, perhaps I might not have gotten to meet you guys today. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon god's lack of conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,375 words. Liu Ji was slightly dumbfounded. Out of nowhere, the pretty lady who had been with the black-clad swordsman walked over, performed a gesture that Liu Ji didn't understand, and then thanked him using incantation. He had no idea why he was suddenly being thanked and thought there must have been some mistake. This strange situation quickly caught the attention of everyone else. Most were puzzled as to why Calidora would suddenly thank Liu Ji. Besides Mervant, who looked slightly embarrassed, Yane seemed to know something. She smiled at Liu Ji and said softly, "I hadn't had a chance to tell them, but they figured it out on their own." For some reason, she said this in incantation. But with the language of incantation, difficulty increased exponentially from words to phrases to sentences. Liu Ji repeated the long sentence in his mind several times and still couldn't fully understand it. He could only grasp that he had done something worth thanking for. But Liu Ji didn't think he had done anything significant. Even if this new lady was mistaken, surely Yane wouldn't be, would she? Had he unknowingly done something extraordinary? While Liu Ji was still baffled, he saw Calidora speaking to the others, and then, he noticed the way the others viewed him changed. Then, as if he were at some kind of idle handshake event, they came over one by one, patting his shoulder or praising him, which made him feel rather embarrassed. Even Misa joined in the fun, saying something in a mix of languages, "Hero saves beauty, brilliant." Liu Ji couldn't understand. And how does he even know English? Hero saves beauty? Me? Oh. Is he referring to the time I swatted someone to death? No, it couldn't be. He was just an amateur who acted on impulse, and from Yane's reaction, it seemed like she didn't consider that foe a significant threat. So, what else could it be? No matter how much Liu Ji thought about it, he still felt like he hadn't done anything. Yet, suddenly, it was as if his favorability with everyone skyrocketed. Don't tell me my MC's halo is back? Liu Ji wondered. But? No, that can't be. Wasn't it said that the halo's favorability boost is supposed to only affect women? Then why is this big cat's arm around my shoulder and hugging me like this? Ah. But his fur is indeed quite comfortable. A while after the commotion died down, everyone began discussing serious matters. As Liu Ji couldn't understand, he could only space out at the side. Of course, he wasn't the only one zoning out. The big cat on his left and the Lalafell on his right were also zoning out as well. These two, who usually didn't participate in decisions or discussions, seemed to have found a new companion in Liu Ji. They sandwiched him between them, sharing the sunflower seeds Misa had just brought over. As long as they had something in their mouths, talking or not didn't matter. Meanwhile, the other three created a completely different vibe. They spread out a bunch of items on the table and methodically exchanged all the information they had. After organizing the information, Yane gave her verdict. I believe we need to get back to the other side of the desert quickly. The whereabouts of the others are still unknown, but both Amwarder and Shiloh have the ability to reach the other side faster than us. It's highly likely that Nox, Guagwe, and Nabelin are with them. The world on the other side of the desert is still unknown to us, and we need to reunite with them as soon as possible. I agree, but I think we can wait a bit. The blood moons these past 2 days have been unusual, Kalidora said. I don't know how long this anomaly will last. Maybe we should ask Misa. No, we don't need to fear the blood moon. Yane shook her head. We survived the last 2 days by hiding, we can leave the same way. Unfortunately, the same method might not work, Mervant interjected. I observed the air quality during our confinement. The 3 of us, plus our new friend, just managed to maintain a balance. But if we add 2 more people, we won't be able to stay hidden in the earth all the way. That. I didn't notice, Yane said, frowning and returning to contemplation. Just as Mervant said, Liu Ji's ability to purify air had its limits. If that limit was exceeded, they would need to open a window to ventilate. However, the bone beasts in the desert could detect even the slightest opening in the earthen walls with their keen senses. While the trio were caught in a dilemma, Misa came over. Friends, want to listen to my opinion? Misa pulled up a chair and sat down, casually placing his hands on the table. Although I genuinely hope you can stay here long term, I can see that you aren't the kind of people who would be content to stay here and live out the rest of your years. We are very grateful for all the help you've provided us, and if we could, we would love to stay and repay your kindness, Yane said earnestly. But we do have other matters to attend to. No, you guys don't have to repay me. Perhaps it seems like I've helped you a lot, but from my perspective, I was merely following my whims, Misa said. I just overheard you all worrying about the blood moon problem. Ah, yes. Yane nodded. Do you have any information regarding it? Well, how should I put this? Misa rested his chin on his hand. I only know that one day, the blood moon might display a power beyond imagination. If you all happen to be in the desert at that time, even if you're hiding in the earth like before, you will still surely die. That can't be true, right? I've never heard of such a blood moon. Yane was taken aback. I have no reason to lie to you. Misa shrugged. And I wouldn't bother lying just to make you stay here for a few more days or months. Of course, I believe you. Yane took a moment to think before asking, so, are you saying we should stay here until that day passes? That's right. For your own safety. Misa nodded. But you don't need to worry. I know you're concerned about your companions, but perhaps I might have an idea where they are. Those Earthwalkers always tell everyone who wants to cross the desert that there's nothing on the other side. They've done an excellent job, and because of their tireless efforts over thousands of years, countless fools have been prevented from dying in the desert. Perhaps for this reason, the tyrant you speak of doesn't realize that he has only conquered half of this world. The trio exchange astonished glances. On their original side beyond the desert, the belief that there's nothing on the other side of the desert was almost a consensus. Swirling Maya City, the closest city you can reach after crossing the desert, Misa said, pushing an old map to the center of the table. If your companions made it out of the desert alive and can't find you, they would most likely wait there. In a faraway royal court, the slumbering tyrant opened his eyes. He glanced at the swinging pendulum clock. Sure enough, since he had fallen asleep, the shorthand had moved exactly 2 notches. Seems like I haven't slept this much in a month. As he thought to himself, he stretched his neck. Speaking of which, there was something I needed to do before I slept. I remember now. There seems to be an interesting fellow in the desert. Perfect timing to check it out. It'll serve as a good way to refresh myself after such a long sleep. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon gods lack a conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,355 words. In the underground space of the ancient desert city, everyone was gathered together for a hot pot. Of course, calling it hot pot was a stretch. It was really just a big pot cooking meat, with various vegetables thrown in. Although Misa's farm grew a variety of produce, the only seasoning available was a dried fruit that tasted somewhat like pepper. There was plenty of salt, which Misa said was collected and processed from the desert, though Liu Ji didn't know the specifics. In any case, he was finally eating something savory after so many days, which greatly improved his mood. Everyone else also seemed rather relaxed. Yane, who had been in a state of constant tension, was now lazily lying in a rocking chair, staring blankly at the glowing stones on the ceiling. It was uncertain how long the blood moon anomaly would last, and since this place was safe, she had no other task besides increasing Liu Ji's daily homework. This had finally given her a reason to relax. Mervant and Calidora, the couple, were being very affectionate, not even bothering with food as they found a secluded corner to be together. It was understandable. They had worried about each other during their separation, with no way to communicate, and had even feared for each other's safety. Now reunited, they naturally wanted to make the most of their time together. Meanwhile, Osa and Jirunimi were rather amusing. Osa, who in the past went crazy from not knowing how to use chopsticks, was now stopping Jirunimi from using her hands to eat. And this was an extreme challenge for him. After all, he wasn't Yane, and Jirunimi wasn't him. His attempts at forcibly teaching Jirunimi only resulted in the Miffy plucking several hairs from his waist in retaliation. This scene somehow reminded Liu Ji of an episode of Tom and Jerry. To be honest, Liu Ji didn't think there was any need for Osa to go out of his way to teach Jirunimi chopsticks usage. After all, they were having hot pot, and it was a standard Chinese hot pot, even if it was a clear soup rather than a spicy one. But with hot pot, even if one didn't use chopsticks, using hands was still out of the question. Unless Jirunimi wanted to eat boiled nails and stewed fingers, she would have to give using chopsticks a try once it was time to eat. Even Miser was already learning, and judging by his practice of picking up invisible food, he was getting quite good at it. Mr. Miser, the meat is almost done. Before we add other vegetables, would you like to try a bit first? Liu Ji called out to Miser. Me? Oh, there's no need. Miser smiled and waved his hand. I don't need to eat, and I can't taste the food anyway. Watching you guys eat is enough. Ah, is that so? Well, that's a shame. Liu Ji was a little surprised. While saying so, he added the chopped vegetables and adjusted the flame on the clay stove. Yeah. It's a shame, but that's how it is. Miser shrugged. Mr. Miser, I'm actually a bit curious, Liu Ji said. You previously mentioned that the ability like yours to communicate directly with anyone can be gained, via the hero's blessing. Does that mean you were once a hero too? Firstly, it's called the blessing of the world. Miser chuckled. And yes, that ability can be learned through the blessing of the world, but it doesn't mean that it can only be gained that way. Think about it, perhaps a demon king could also have it. You can't be a demon king, right? Asked Liu Ji. I wish I were. A demon king has much more freedom than a hero. Miser laughed heartily. And didn't you previously say that demon kings are all either little girls or busty women nowadays? No, there are men too, Liu Ji said. Working at fast food restaurants, romancing the hero, probably romancing the hero. I only got to read half of that story. I'm not sure how it develops later on. That sounds rather enviable. Unfortunately, reality isn't a story, Miser said, twirling his chopsticks. A problem that can be solved by defeating a demon king is too convenient. But in reality, what a hero needs to fight against isn't a demon king. Then, what is it? Liu Ji asked, puzzled. Imperial tyranny or something? That's a problem for ordinary humans themselves. The world doesn't grant blessings for such things. Miser shook his head. At least, as far as I know, what the heroes throughout history faced were calamities. Calamities? Liu Ji frowned. Like an asteroid strike, or a volcano erupting. Asteroid? Volcano? Miser raised an eyebrow. Hey, strange. I'm actually unable to understand these two words. Liu Ji was surprised. Are there no asteroids or comets here? I think perhaps those are things unique to your former world. Miser shrugged. This? Who? Liu Ji was bewildered. No asteroids and volcanoes? Does this make sense? This other world's crust doesn't move? Even if the crust doesn't move, surely a comet or two must have been witnessed over the years, right? Oh, by the way, it looks like the water in your pot is about to spill over, Miser gave a reminder. Crap, it's already bubbling. The fire is too hot. Liu Ji was taken by surprise and hurriedly went to adjust the airflow of the clay stove. But just then, an inexplicable chill ran up his spine. Almost subconsciously, Liu Ji instantly turned into a potato and fell to the ground with a thud. Seeing this bizarre scene, Jirunimi, who was messing around with Osa, wanted to cry out instinctively. However, at that moment, Miser covered her mouth. Then, everyone heard Miser's voice in their heads, "Stay quiet, don't make a sound." A man in a scarlet cape and wearing a crown set with a ruby was strolling through the ancient desert city. He casually approached a stone person stall and picked up one of the snacks sold by the vendor. It was a roast meat skewer made entirely out of stone, though the craftsmanship was so lifelike that if painted, it could pass off for real meat. The stall owner watched him pick up the skewer and even took out a box for collecting payment. The man looked inside the box, which was roughly half filled with coins that were also made out of stone. It seemed that stall owner wanted him to pay. The man chuckled and put the skewer back, casually swiped a coin from the box, then walked away. The stall owner was momentarily stunned, but returned to its usual state after a while. The man twirled the coin in his hand, shifting his gaze away from the stall owner, and looked ahead. "I must say, even with all my experience, this city has the finest stone sculptures I've ever seen," the man said with a smile. "Taking a coin as a souvenir wouldn't be too much to ask, would it?" "Of course not," Miser said, approaching with 2 iced drinks in hand. He raised one of the drinks and said, "I'm always generous to guests." "Care for a drink?" "Of course, I'll drink the other one first." Interesting. Hospitality from the host, how can I refuse?" The man took the drink, downed it in one gulp, then took a deep breath and sighed. "Delicious. The intense toxin's crazy flavor is just right. I needed something like this to perk me up." Smiling at Miser, he continued, "Unfortunately, if you were hoping it would kill me, your wish might fall short." "No, I wasn't hoping for that," Miser said, smiling as he downed his own drink. "I just think that this flavor is perfect for people like us." If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon god's lack of conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,279 words. Underground, within a sealed barrier in the core area, everyone sat on the ground, tense and silent. And in the middle of the group was a pot with a potato. Clearly, that was Liu Ji. Since the strange incident occurred, he had turned into a potato. Osa felt that since Liu Ji had turned into a potato, he should be planted back in the soil. Thus, he found a flower pot, filled it with some soil, and planted Liu Ji in it. At this moment, a stone golem brought in a few cups of water, placing one beside each person before turning and leaving the barrier. However, no one picked up their cups to drink. Osa did pick up his cup, but only to water Liu Ji. Seeing her downcast companions all silent, Jirunini was unable to sit still and spoke up. If I remember correctly, Mr. Miser said we could talk in here, right?" Mervant glanced at her and sighed. "So, what do you want to say?" "Well, I just wanted to say that even though the tyrant is here, we still..." Jirunini began but then faltered, holding her forehead and cursing softly, "Damn it, we can't do anything." Kalidora reached out, pulled Jirunini over, and held her in her arms. Jirunini froze up at first, then buried her head in Kalidora's embrace, her shoulders trembling slightly. Kalidora said nothing, just gently stroking her companion's hair. Mervant let out a long sigh, lowered his head and rested it in his hands. Yane went beside Osa, pulling the flower pot with Liu Ji closer and staring at the shimmering glass-like leaves. Osa patted her shoulder and gave her an encouraging smile. Yane returned a smile, albeit a weak one. Fear, silence, pressure, and unease permeated every creek and crevice, making every one of them feel stifled. "I've heard stories about you." Miser and the man in the scarlet cloak stood opposite each other on a sand dune beyond the ancient city. "The legends depict you as somewhat of a madman, but I never imagined you to be concerned about the well-being of my golems. In the eyes of my enemies, I have always been mad, or rather, terrifying." The man in the crimson cape smiled slightly. "And perhaps, those golems might not necessarily be yours." "Oh? So you sought me out because you wished to purchase some art?" Miser's expression showed little subtleties. "That's a tad disappointing. Do you think so little of me?" "You? How interesting. Did you think that killing some of my minions qualifies you to challenge me?" As the man said that, his figure suddenly flickered. In the next moment, he was behind Miser. Turning back, he said disdainfully, "Killing you is effortless." As he finished speaking, Miser's entire right-up silently slid off, hitting the ground with a thud. No blood skirted out, and the section of the stump was a pure, clean white, as if it was a piece of cut white jade. "Impressive. I must admit, I've never seen a faster sword in my life," Miser said, bending down to pick up his fallen arm and casually reattaching it. But this manner of a greeting is rather rude, don't you think? His body flickered, and he threw a punch at the Cape man's face, which struck him squarely. Explosive force rippled outward, kicking up a storm of sand. But despite how powerful the strike seemed, it only made the man's upper body tilt back about 15 degrees, and his face didn't even have a scratch. In contrast, half of Miser's body was shattered by the recoil, turning into sand. That punch strength is decent. The man nodded. But I don't think you are a boxer, are you? Indeed, I haven't trained in boxing. I just wanted to vent by punching you, Miser said coldly as the missing half of his body reformed as if nothing had happened. So, have you vented enough now? The man asked with a smile. No, quite the opposite. I'm much angrier now, Miser replied icily. You should know what you have done to this world. You're angry because of that? The man was a little surprised. So, what do you plan to do? Kill me? I think your suggestion isn't too bad, Miser said, his lips twitching. You? A mere indestructible toy. The man laughed heartily. You don't think I've never dealt with an immortal like you before, the man sneered. Miser, however, seemed uninterested in exchanging more perfunctory words. Before the man could finish speaking, Miser threw another punch at his face. The man didn't shirk or evade, he just took it straight in the face like before. This punch was even more ferocious than the previous. The immense energy created a temporary vacuum at the point of impact, displacing all the air and kicking up a spherical cloud of sand, which expanded, burst, and then scattered in all directions as a chaotic sandstorm. This time, the man finally took half a step back. But the cost was high. Miser's entire body was pulverized by the force, far beyond its ability to endure. Though Miser reformed in an instant, the man saw a glimpse of red amid the dispersing dust. Then, the man struck. Moving with blinding speed, his hand pierced through Miser's chest and emerged from his back. And now in his hand was a crimson crystal. This is your core, isn't it? The man smirked, tilting his head slightly as he looked at Miser. How about that? Can you still boast about your grand ambitions when your own life is in someone else's hands? Miser turned his head to glance at the crystal in the man's hand, then looked back, his gaze still indifferent. Yes, congratulations. You've grabbed the core of this body. Miser shrugged. Why don't you all try crushing it? How amusing, the man sneered. Why not? With that, he exerted his strength, effortlessly crushing the crystal as if it were an ice cream cone. In that moment, he could sense a certain power vanish. He instinctively assumed that it was the power sustaining Miser's life force. Thus, he watched Miser's face, waiting for anguish and despair to show. Those were his favorite expressions. However, what he saw was a more complex emotion. He saw Miser gazing at the sky, his eyes full of hatred, yet beneath that hatred lay a sense of nostalgia, like seeing an old friend after many years. Sigh, I didn't realize how long it had been since I felt this way. Miser muttered to himself. The man frowned as he sensed something was wrong. He looked up into the sky but saw nothing unusual. No. Something wasn't right. He blinked and only felt the world turn upside down as if he was about to fall into a sea of blood. He blinked another time, and the clear skies returned. He blinked once more, and the blood-colored sky reappeared. Then, as he stared at the blood-stained sky, the sky opened its eyes. A blood-red moon was gazing down at the land, gazing at him. It's here, Miser said, gazing at the moon. Well then, good luck. I'll be off first. In the next instant, he transformed into fine white sand, dispersing into the boundless desert. Gazing at that blood-red moon, the man's lips twitched, and he slowly uttered a single word. F***CK? If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon gods lacquer conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,160 words. Beneath the crimson moon, the man in the scarlet cloak floated in the sky. Below him, a sea of skeletons roiled, and gigantic bone worms made a dreadful rustling as they weaved through the sand. He had to admit that he had been caught off guard. After centuries without encountering significant resistance, he had grown somewhat complacent. A colossal skeletal giant, nearly the size of a mountain, slowly emerged from the ground, reaching out with limbs that could be described as either hands or claws as if it were a tormented soul from hell. But this wasn't important. Blood-red raindrops fell, staining a skeletal dragon as it spread its wings, the bony appendages extending over a kilometer wide. In the face of absolute power, schemes and tricks were ultimately nothing more than feeble antics. A bone worm, the size of a train, shot out from the ground, its massive, barbed mouth wide open, ready to swallow the man in the cape hole. In the next second, the worm's head seemed to suffer an invisible but tremendous impact, exploding into fragments, and its huge body crashed to the ground. The man lightly withdrew his right leg, looking down at the hellish chaos below, a faint smile playing on his lips. "What a grand spectacle," he murmured. "Coming here was worth it." The next moment, he drew his sword. "What a pity." He glanced at the ancient desert city, now engulfed by the sea of skeletons. "Such exquisite art, but it's probably beyond saving." As he finished speaking, a dazzling light condensed on his sword. He turned and slashed toward the sea of skeletons. There was a brilliant flash of light. Immense energy formed a golden hemisphere on the ground, which then erupted, sweeping across a kilometer, reducing countless skeletal creatures to dust. Standing at the center of the explosion, the man slowly rose, defiantly tilting his head toward the blood-red moon in the sky. In the next instant, countless bone whips, like alien tentacles, shot out from the ground, trying to ensnare him. With a light step, the man slashed away most of the whips, then leaped into the air, intending to evade the remaining ones. But then, a massive shadow loomed above him as the gigantic skeletal giant's massive fist descended like a falling meteor. Boom! The giant fist struck the ground heavily, raising a tsunami of dust that blanketed the whole area and creating a fierce sandstorm in the heart of the desert. This force could be described as apocalyptic. But, in the next instant, there was another change. A brilliant light shone from beneath the skeletal giant's fist. Beneath that massive fist, the man, seemingly insignificant in comparison to the colossal giant, was holding off that crushing blow with just his left elbow. And the glow was merely an immense energy radiating from his sword. "Impressive power, worthy of me defending against," the man sneered. "But with such a huge body, aren't you just a target?" With that, he swung his great sword upward. A dazzling golden crescent shot into the sky 1,000 meters high, cleaving the skeletal giant in two. Remnants of golden light at the points of the cut still glowed, seemingly gathering energy. "Since you're a skeleton, just cutting you in half shouldn't be enough," the man said, turning away. "So, turn to dust." The golden light exploded. The colossal giant burned like paper, golden flames reducing it to ash. "Now then." The man looked up with a crazed smile, taunting the crimson moon. "Who's next in line to die?" In the underground sealed space, Yane and the others sat in total silence, the oppressive atmosphere making it hard to breathe. Just then, the barrier surrounding the space disappeared, and the light from the sunstones on the ceiling illuminated the area once more. "All right, come on out. I've set up the barrier for the entire underground area." Miser, with his crystal staff in hand, stepped in. What's with you all? Why do you look like your shaved ice just fell to the ground?" Hearing Miser's voice, everyone was first stunned, then turned to look at him in amazement. "Mr. Miser." Calidora was the first to ask. "Why you are all right." "Who? What? Did you all think I was dead?" Miser asked. "Do I look that much of a weakling?" "No, but that tyrant." Yane was still in disbelief. "Did you manage to drive him away?" "Not quite, otherwise, I wouldn't have needed to set up the outer barriers." Miser sighed, then looked upward. "There's something else fighting him now, so I came down here." "Something else?" Calidora was taken aback. "Is it that sort of enhanced blood moon?" "Ah? Oh, you mean the sort you've seen?" "No, that's not an enhanced blood moon." Miser shook his head. "In fact, it's quite the opposite. That was just an extremely weakened blood moon, just a bit stronger than the usual periodic disturbances." Calidora and Girunini exchanged glances, seeing the shock in each other's eyes. They still vividly remembered the terrifying bone dragon, several dozen meters long. If that was an extremely weakened blood moon, what would a true blood moon be like? "So, you previously said you didn't wish to leave." Calidora gazed at Miser. "Were you planning to use the blood moon to?" She couldn't finish her sentence. This idea was much too insane, so much that she didn't have the courage to voice it. Yes. I did intend to kill him." Miser smiled. "Why? Do you genuinely believe it is impossible?" "Ah, ha ha." Calidora scratched her cheek sheepishly, implicitly agreeing. "Then, did you succeed?" Yane asked. "Or do you think you can succeed?" "If you had asked me this question yesterday, I would have told you without hesitation that I would definitely succeed." Miser shrugged. But now, I can only say, I don't know. The entire group lapsed into silence once more. Miser was also somewhat at a loss. When he landed those 2 punches on the man's face, he realized that even the strongest bone creatures might not be able to inflict significant harm on this man. That fellow was incredibly tough. Clearly a body of flesh and blood, but that durability was inhuman. Sighing, Miser took a look around and suddenly had a question. Hey, where's Liu Ji? Liu Ji? Yane was caught by surprise, but then quickly realized. That pronunciation. Is that his name? Yeah, the little guy with the green hair. Miser nodded. Where is he? Well. Yane hesitated for a moment, then picked up the pot with the potato shoot and showed it to Miser. You might not believe this, but here he is. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. Time really not the demon gods lack a conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,158 words. Liu Ji was panicking. He wasn't just panicking, he was extremely panicked, beyond measure. Ever since he had turned into a potato due to some inexplicable, strong instinct, he found that he couldn't change back. He had never felt like this before. Even during those many years as a potato which he lost count of, he always felt that he could turn back into a human with just a thought. But now, it was like the chains of a bicycle he was riding had come off. No matter how hard he tried to change back, nothing happened. He couldn't help fear that he might be stuck as a potato for the rest of his life. That's right, fear. Long ago, he had imagined this sort of life and still thought that it was rather acceptable. But now, as he thought about being unable to change back, he felt only the fear of immeasurable loneliness. He didn't want this. He wanted to continue learning magic from Yane. He hadn't even had a proper conversation with this little teacher who always had a sad expression. Also the smiling fluffy big cat, whose name Liu Ji still didn't know yet. And there was the swordsman. Liu Ji hadn't yet told him that eating raw meat was harmful to his health. Liu Ji also recalled the time he was inexplicably praised by everyone. He wanted to know why he received such praise because only then could he genuinely enjoy the feeling of being admired without feeling like a fraud. The thought that he might never have these opportunities again and could only live as a lonely potato for the rest of his life magnified his inner fear exponentially. He struggled, constantly trying to turn back into a human, but no matter how hard he tried, he remained an unmoving potato. Rustle. Perhaps there was a breeze from somewhere, and the leaves of the potato shoot rustled softly. So, when you found him, he was an unusually large potato. Miser stroked his chin, looking at the potato plant in Yane's hand from different angles. He did mention this to me, but I thought he was just making it up to keep me at a distance. I didn't expect it to be true. Yes, and he turned into a potato the moment you sensed the tyrant approaching, Yane said. At the time, your attention was on the tyrant, so you didn't notice. So he sensed that guy's presence even before I did. Miser tapped his temple with his finger. Strange, could it be the blessing? But the blessing's aura is no longer on him. Could it be a residual effect? Blessing? Yane probed. Did you think of something? Well. He told me he was a potato for about several decades. Miser rested his chin on his palm. Although I've never seen a potato that can grow for decades, I doubt it could grow to over 3 meters tall with a root system spreading hundreds of meters. You want to know how long he's been out there? Yane was somewhat perplexed. But what's the significance of knowing that? Well, it has some significance. Let me think. Miser pondered for a moment. By the way, do you remember how many years ago it was when this tyrant appeared? 1,143 years ago, said Jirunini almost instantly. He declared control over the human capital as soon as he appeared, causing a collective outrage among the internal factions of power within the human race. The nobles united to attack him, only to be found dead in their beds the next morning. Appearing directly in the human capital. Miser frowned. Damn, that's... TCH, so that's the case. It makes sense like this. What makes sense? Calidora asked. Hold on. Miser mulled some more, then asked, during the resistance against this tyrant, was there like a hero that emerged, gathering together everyone's hope to defeat this tyrant? If only there were, Jirunini said sadly. Since the coalition was crushed, there has been no force capable of threatening him. Everyone has been on the run, hiding wherever they can, living as nomads. Well. Then, it's pretty clear. Miser stroked his chin. Although he said it felt like it was several decades as a potato, I think he's been in the ground for over 1,000 years. That long? Mervant was shocked. Ah? More or less? Miser wasn't at all surprised, given how big he grew. So, what does that have to do with his current situation? Yane asked. Not much. It just clarified some things for me. Miser shrugged. Oh, wait, it does mean something. You don't have to worry about him. Once the tyrant leaves, I think he should return to normal. The tyrant will leave. Yane was taken aback. But didn't you say? Yes, I don't know if I can kill him. Miser sighed. It's rather disappointing, but I'm not really the person for this job. Although I tried, I'm really not the one to do so. But he will surely leave. Because I'm probably the sort he hates the most. Skeletal dragons roared, bone worms surged, and crimson blood rain poured down. Under the red moon, the desert seemed to be filled with uncountable monsters, continuously emerging from the sand all over the desert and converging toward the center. The man wielded his heavy sword as if dancing in the desert. Each swing of his sword brought forth a devouring golden blaze, turning the approaching skeletal creatures into ashes. Even 10,000-foot giants and 1,000-foot dragons could only meet their end with a single strike from him. If viewed from the clouds, the place where the man stood looked like a golden vortex devouring everything, attracting and then shredding all the bone creatures of the desert. And this scene had already lasted for an entire month. The blood rain continued, and the skeletal legion seemed endless. Golden flames danced, and the man showed no signs of fatigue. He laughed maniacally as if intoxicated by the fight. This battle seemed like it would never end. But observing from a distance, Miser knew the limit was near. Indeed, he couldn't defeat this monster of a man. The blood moon also had its limits. Blood would enhance the blood moon's power, and corpses would nourish it. The blood moon wasn't this powerful in the beginning, it grew after devouring countless lives, expanding to this state. It was a monster Miser raised himself, no one knew better than him. This monster was never made to kill just one person. When the blood rain stopped and the bones were exhausted, this battle would finally come to an end. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon gods lack a conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,230 words. Thousands of years ago, at the edge of the continent, there was a small kingdom. The capital city was situated in a place of scenic beauty. The people lived by fishing and generally led prosperous lives. Every month, the king held a grand celebration, during which the entire kingdom rejoiced while travelers from elsewhere came to visit. As the king had decreed that many of its special preserved products could only be sold during the celebrations and they would enjoy certain tax reductions during the festivities, many wealthy merchants came specifically to buy local specialties in large quantities and spend lavishly during the celebrations. This was what made the common folk happiest. During these times, every household would bring out their stockpiled special preserved products for sale, making a good profit, and would also pick up some rare items from these visiting merchant caravans. The idea of holding these celebrations was the second thing in the king's life that made him proud. As for what made him proudest, it was his son, the kingdom's only prince, a prodigy in the arcane arts. In his youth, no one noticed that the young prince had any particular talent for magic. He learned spells more slowly than average, but he had a peculiar love for the arcane and often begged his father to buy him various spellbooks. The old king adored his son and began collecting spellbooks from merchant caravans during the celebrations, gifting them to his son. At the time, the king thought that even though his son didn't seem particularly talented, with enough reading and effort, he might still achieve something in the arcane arts. He, who didn't understand incantation, thought that understanding of magic was entirely an individual thing. In their eyes, their little prince was slower at learning incantations compared to his peers. However, while his peers only grasped the first level of a spell, their prince could reach the 5th level. This talent became increasingly apparent as he grew older and accumulated more magical power, and by his teenage years, people began calling him a prodigy, the young genius prince of the kingdom. Later, during his youth, he leveraged his magical prowess to discover a vein of ocean spirit crystals in the surrounding seas. This remarkable achievement prompted his father, the king, to declare that the newfound wealth would benefit all the kingdom's citizens. Consequently, the prince's reputation soared, and he was venerated almost to a divine status within the kingdom. To understand the significance of this discovery, this single vein of spirit crystals was more valuable than all the kingdom's existing assets combined. However, the king didn't care for that. His declaration was a testament to his belief that his son's worth far exceeded even this tremendous wealth. In that same year, the king procured a teleportation scroll to the world's most prestigious arcane academy as a birthday surprise for the prince. Despite his reluctance to leave, the prince decided to honor his father's wishes and the significance of the gift. He resolved to reach the pinnacle of arcane mastery and return home with glory. And thus, his departure marked the beginning of a 12-year journey. An industrious genius had limitless potential, and the young prince surged along the path of arcane knowledge. Eventually, he became the youngest Grand Arcanist in the world, fulfilling his dream of reaching the zenith of arcane mastery. Upon his triumphant return, eager to embrace his beloved father and hear his praise once more, the prince instead encountered a scene of devastation. His once thriving homeland lay in ruins. Gone were the days of prosperity. The remaining inhabitants were emaciated and weak. The once pristine sea now emitted a noxious stench, its oily filth reflecting a toxic, multicolored haze. At that moment, the prince's world practically crumbled. He walked despondently through the ruins, surveying the tragic state of his homeland. Soon, some of the remaining residents recognized him. They rushed toward the prince as if seeing a long-lost relative and clung to him, weeping bitterly. Before long, the prince learned the truth. It happened in the second year after he left to study. A duke from a neighboring kingdom, which ruled over most of the surrounding area, arrived with a document supposedly from the Sanctum of Arcane Arts. He informed the aging king that the Sanctum had received a divine oracle, predicting a calamity that would destroy the world. Accompanying the duke was a Grand Arcanist, whose presence validated the duke's claim with the authority of the Sanctum. They demanded that the king abdicate his throne, allowing the Sanctum and the capable neighboring kingdom to temporarily take control. Once the calamity was dealt with, they promised to return the rule to the king. The king sensed something was amiss. However, as the ruler of a small kingdom, he was in no position to challenge the authority of the two visitors. Moreover, they wielded the moral high ground of the entire world. The king had no choice but to comply, relinquishing his throne and becoming a provisional noble. He anxiously awaited the impending calamity, praying for the safety of his people. However, the more he waited, the more he sensed something was amiss. Yes, many anti-calamity supplies were being brought in. But no matter how the king looked at it, those were equipment and materials for extracting crystal minerals from the ocean. Under the pretext of secrecy and safety, the regular festivals were cancelled, the kingdom's prosperity dwindled, and the residents had to return to fishing to make a living. But soon, the sea became polluted. The king clearly understood that this was a consequence of the rapid extraction of oceanic resources. Seeing his people's lives becoming increasingly difficult, his beautiful homeland falling into ruin, and the kingdom he built being destroyed by the so-called calamity, the king realized that this wasn't a calamity for the world but for him. Thus, he sought to resist. But where could he find the strength to resist? Shortly after, the former king was executed for attempted treason against the current lord. His wife and 2 daughters were also executed alongside him. With the king dead, the lord appointed by the duke dropped all pretenses, completely sealing off the surrounding roads and speeding up the extraction of oceanic minerals. And eventually, it turned into this grim sight that lay before the returning prince. On that day, the prince went mad. Calamity? A calamity? Very well. The people surrounded him, sobbing and clinging to him, as if grasping for a lifeline out of this hell. He looked up, tears streaming down his face, yet a maniacal smile crept across his lips. You wish for calamity, do you? Fine, then let me bring you exactly what you desire. From this day forth, I shall be the embodiment of calamity. After that, the prince vanished, taking the remaining people with him, their whereabouts unknown. One night, 10 years later, the duke woke up and, out of instinct, glanced out the window. Then, he witnessed a sight he had never seen before. A blood-red moon was slowly rising on the horizon. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon gods lack a conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,206 words. The last drop of blood rain fell to the ground, and the sky, once like a sea of blood, gradually returned to its usual state. The blood moon still hung high, but its red hue had dimmed significantly. Crunch! The man in the scarlet cape crushed the last skull beneath his boot, took a deep breath, and exhaled slowly. Clap, clap, clap. Miser slowly emerged from the desert, clapping his hands slowly. I must admit, you are probably the strongest person I've ever seen in my life, Miser began. You won. I can't kill you indeed. Ha ha, how interesting. The man eyed Miser. Even now, you don't seem to worry about what I can do to you. So? Miser raised an eyebrow. What can you do to me? The man swung his heavy sword, and golden flames turned Miser's body to ashes. But in the next second, Miser walked out from a different direction. Are you throwing a tantrum? Miser tilted his head. Why? Weren't you having fun just now? Heh, the man scoffed. It's your attitude that's truly annoying. With that, he slashed again. This time, before the sword even struck, Miser's body turned to ashes on its own. And in the next moment, he was walking up from behind the man. Stop wasting your effort. Getting mad at the yellow sand in the desert won't hurt the desert itself. Miser shook his head. You can't kill me. No, maybe you can find a way to kill me, but unfortunately, you wouldn't dare. Huh? I don't dare. The man looked up, glaring at Miser. Why? Just because of that powerless lantern in the sky. Hee, exactly, Miser chuckled. Because ultimately, you are a person who wants to rule the world, and you certainly wouldn't like a calamity being unleashed. The man's brow furrowed. He looked up at the blood moon in the sky, and an invisible force gathered around him. The next moment, a burst of energy exploded, and he shot toward the blood moon. Miser watched him, first surprised, then with a strange look of hopefulness in his eyes. Light flashed, and with a slash of his sword, golden flames soared into the sky. The golden crescent seemed to divide the sky in half as it slowly flew toward the blood moon. However, as the golden flames touched the red moon, it rippled like an illusion. Seeing the scene he had anticipated, Miser sighed. Soon, the man returned, landing on the ground with an annoyed expression. You better hope I don't figure out how to deal with your lantern, the man said coldly. Otherwise, that will be the day you die. Oh, go ahead and try. Want me to give you a hint? Miser shrugged. Have you heard of arcane pollution? Pollution from destructive forbidden spells. The man frowned. So, you're saying? Yes, it seems you understand, Miser said with a smile. The sort of pollution that can corrode even elemental spirits. There's no better way to deal with it than to let it naturally dissipate over time. This moon is crafted using the pollution itself as the core, woven with arcane arts. After creating this monster, even I do not know how to resolve it. If you can, feel free to try. Madman. The man's brow twitched. Are you trying to turn the world into a wasteland? The old me certainly thought so. Miser smiled. As for now, whether to unleash this monster on the world or not depends on you. The man stared at Miser for a few minutes, eventually raising his right hand and pointing his finger at Miser. He pointed for a while but couldn't say anything. Finally, he sheathed his sword, nearly gritting his teeth as he uttered, Fine. You're the first to make me suffer a loss in all these years. Be proud of yourself and stay holed up here for the rest of your life. With that, he glared at the blood moon once more, then with a swish of his cloak, he flew off. Watching the figure of the man in the scarlet cloak grow smaller, Miser sighed. In the end, I still couldn't die. In the underground, Yane held the flower pot with Liu Ji in it, lost in thought. Looking at the lush green leaves, she felt a strange sense of envy. If she could also turn into a potato, wouldn't she be able to forget her worries and live a carefree life? If only that were possible. If it were really possible, she would seek her revenge and then turn into a potato and plant herself in some remote wilderness, like Liu Ji did, and lose herself in time for 1,000 years. While in her daydream, she suddenly felt the flower pot in her hands tremble. Before she could react, there was a cracking sound, and the pot split open, revealing a large, pale body. Liu Ji had suddenly transformed back. And because Yane had been holding the pot, Liu Ji appeared in her arms in a princess carry position. For a moment, there was complete silence as everyone stared in shock at this strange scene. Yane was also stunned, staring at Liu Ji in bewilderment. Then, to everyone's surprise, Liu Ji suddenly hugged Yane tightly. Whoa! That came from Osar. Jirunini and Mervant stared wide-eyed. Kalidora covered her mouth. Yane was completely frozen in place. This moment seemingly frozen in time lasted for a few seconds before Liu Ji suddenly realized what was happening. He exclaimed, and quickly let go, frantically trying to explain, but struggled due to his limited language skills and not knowing what to say. All of a sudden, he seemed to remember something and froze up. He looked down at himself. Completely naked. Liu Ji's face immediately showed an expression of sheer horror. Yane, still in a state of shock, instinctively followed Liu Ji's gaze downward. She immediately let out a scream and, with a push, threw Liu Ji to the ground. At that moment, Osa reacted the quickest, grabbing Liu Ji's clothes from the side and quickly covering him with them. Of course, it would have been better if the clothes weren't backward. Liu Ji didn't care about the clothes being backward, he had just rushed to put them on. His face was now bright red, and with the hood hanging around his neck, he looked rather comical. Just then, Miser entered the room. He looked around, stroking his chin thoughtfully. "Well, I came to tell you the good news that the tyrant has left," Miser said. "But judging by the situation, did I miss something interesting?" "Ah. Mr. Miser, could you help me explain to them?" Liu Ji said, seeing Miser as a lifesaver. "I just got too excited because I couldn't change back before and then suddenly did, and then." "Don't worry about it." Miser laughed. "Come with me later, I have something I want to discuss with you." If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon god's lack of conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,205 words. On the surface, amid the ruins of the desert city, stone golems return to the surface, searching through sands for the old city stones, trying to rebuild it. Liu Ji followed Miser to the surface. Gazing at the rather desolate and bleak scene, he asked, "Mr. Miser, what happened here?" "While you were a potato, someone came by," Miser said as he led Liu Ji through the ruins. "You might not have felt it, but in fact, you've been a potato for over a month." "Ah? That long?" Liu Ji was surprised. "Yeah, your sense of time is indeed hazy when you're a potato," Miser said. "By the way, you mentioned you were a potato in the wild for decades, but my guess is that you were a potato for over 1,000 years. Over 1,000 years? Liu Ji repeated in shock. While it did feel like he had been a potato for a long time, Liu Ji thought that it was 100 or 200 years at most. He never imagined it to reach for digits. But even if I was a potato for a month, Liu Ji glanced at the ruins all around him. Who could have come and turned this place into this? Who? How should I say this? Miser stopped, squatted down, and began digging in the sand. "I've probably told you before that you're a retired hero, right?" "Yeah." Liu Ji nodded. "Then, do you know what a hero's duty is?" Miser asked. To save the world?" Liu Ji answered. "Yes, that's what everyone says," Miser went on while continuing to dig in the sand. "But why? Have you ever thought about why the world has to be saved by someone from another world? And why does this unfortunate soul from another world, brought here without any preparation or understanding of the situation, have to risk their life for the whole world? Perhaps those summoned were originally dissatisfied with their former lives. Or, at least they were yearning for a different life." Liu Ji scratched his cheek. I guess it's like that. At least that's how it is in the stories." "Ha, what you said isn't wrong. In fact, it's the same in reality," Miser said, already having dug a half-person deep sand pit. "Keep this question in mind for now, and I'll ask you another one. Why summon a hero?" "Because some kind of crisis occurred." Liu Ji asked apprehensively. "A crisis?" Miser looked at Liu Ji, sizing him up, then jested, "Hey, do you think that if a crisis has already occurred, can summoning an ordinary person like you from a peaceful world solve anything?" "Ah?" Liu Ji was stumped. "Maybe their luck isn't that good? So I became retired." "No, that's not it." Miser shook his head. "Every hero summoned starts off just like you, a no combat experience, no power, just an ordinary person. But perhaps because heroes have always left a strong impression or are recorded in history when they're already incredibly powerful, most people, even those responsible for summoning, often overlook this." Liu Ji was even more confused. "But why? Wouldn't it be better to summon someone strong from the start?" "No, how would that be good?" Miser shook his head once more. "With someone who is strong from the beginning, it is difficult to bestow favors upon them. But if it's someone who is powerless at first, just leaving them hungry in the wilderness for a day before sending someone to fetch them would be enough to make them grateful." "Ooh? I get summoned, starve, and I still have to thank them." Liu Ji was taken aback. "Why?" Smart one. In fact, there are many heroes that this trick doesn't work on." Miser laughed. "But they have many other ways. For example, pairing you with a princess or prince. Don't be surprised, those high-ranking nobles' children are diplomatic resources anyway." Then, they pamper you with good food and drink, subtly hinting that you shouldn't just be a wallflower, encouraging you to go out and train. Following that, they let you suffer setbacks, sending someone to rescue you, undermining your confidence while the princess or prince comforts you, making you dependent. When you, who bear the world's blessing, are loyal to them, you will undoubtedly progress smoothly due to good fortune and, with a sense of belonging, would then willingly go to save the world. Liu Ji had a look of astonishment on his face. A single term came to his mind, PUA, TL note, PUA stands for pickup artist, and as a Chinese internet slang, it refers to mentally controlling you and making you lose self-confidence, i.e. gaslighting. Case solved. No wonder most heroes end up being sycophants, they've been PUA'd? So, it's never been a matter of luck. It's all planned, said Miser as he pulled out a cross-shaped tombstone from the dirt and placed it on the ground before continuing to dig. His friends were all buried here. Although the land beneath the blood moon had long absorbed their flesh and blood, Miser had to unearth the proof that they had once existed. So, does that mean that heroes are often summoned before the disaster actually occurs? Liu Ji mused. Since, according to what you say, heroes need time to grow. Yes, exactly, because of a divine oracle, Miser explained. The sanctum will tell everyone that God has issued a decree, predicting a future calamity, and therefore, a hero needs to be summoned. This question might be a bit redundant, Liu Ji said with a peculiar expression, but since there is a God, why doesn't he handle the problem himself? Because gods can't interfere with the mortal realm. Because gods are supreme. Because humans must save themselves. Miser mimicked in a mocking high-pitched voice, then scoffed. It's all nonsense because there is no such thing as a god. The divine oracle, as fancy as it sounds, is just a high-level prophecy spell. That's. Liu Ji felt like he had just heard something shocking. But since they can predict it, can't they come up with a way to solve it themselves? Why do they have to summon some unfortunate soul? Because they can't solve it, Miser explained. The effects of prophecy spells are limited, they don't know exactly what kind of calamity will occur, so there's no way to take specific preventive measures. History has shown that the best option is to concentrate resources to cultivate a super individual who can be on standby at any time. Does it have to be an individual? Can't they prepare some powerful army or something? Liu Ji still didn't quite understand. Can one person really fight against an entire nation's military might? I don't know how it was in your world, but here. Miser chuckled. I probably haven't told you yet, but I was once a calamity myself. And an army, no matter how powerful, is worthless in front of me. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. Time Really Not the Demon Gods Lacquer Conquering Otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,134 words. Watch carefully. This bag contains the bones left over from the roast lamb you guys had before. Miser raised a bag in his left hand. Liu Ji nodded. And this jar holds the blood drained from the lamb, Miser continued, raising the jar in his right hand. Aha. Liu Ji nodded again, thinking that the contents might be made to use blood pudding or something similar. Now, here's a pit. All we need to do is... Miser began, throwing both the jar and the bag into the sand pit and then covering them with sand. Before long, a sheep skeleton crawled out of the ground. However, it now looked more monstrous, with sharp teeth, menacing horns, and spikes all over its body. Whoa! Liu Ji involuntarily backed off. And if you smash this thing? Miser said, punching the skeletal sheep in the face. With a crisp sound, the skeletal sheep shattered into pieces and slowly sank back into the ground. Then just a few moments later, the skeletal sheep emerged from the sand again. And if you want to get rid of it for good, Miser continued, raising his crystal staff and smashing the skeleton repeatedly until every bone was crushed into dust. So, you have to smash it this much. Liu Ji's mouth twitched. Good thing we're in the desert. If there was a city nearby. A long time ago, a certain duke destroyed my homeland and killed my family for a mineral vein. Miser smiled. So, I created this moon on his land. Liu Ji blinked several times. I won't ask about the rest. Did he die peacefully? Rather peacefully. Miser smiled. A maid he had tormented crawled out from his castle's backyard, biting a few of his servants to death. The servants bit a guard, the guard bit his pet dragon, and eventually, every living being in the castle turned into skeletons, including the duke himself. Later, his son came to personally burn him to ashes. Oh, and his son also turned into a skeleton in the end. Oh, wow, a classic zombie disaster. Liu Ji shuddered. What happened after that? After you got your revenge? After, Ha ha, well, things got out of control. Miser chuckled, walking over to a spot and sitting down. There were 2 neat rows of tombstones that had been dug up. Initially, I just wanted revenge on the Duke who destroyed my family, those behind him, and the Grand Arcanist of the Sanctum who conspired with them, Miser said with a bitter smile. But I might have gone a bit too far. After losing control of this moon, it almost turned the entire world into a graveyard of skeletons. And then? Liu Ji asked. Did you figure out a way to contain it? No. At that time, I didn't care about anything. Miser looked up at the sky. I had lost everything. My compatriots, who left our homeland with me, died one after another due to the long-term consumption of contaminated seafood. Even if the world were really destroyed, I doubt I would have cared. Then, Liu Ji mused for a bit. Did the hero of that era come? Yeah, she did, Miser said, gently touching a tombstone beside him. Alone, with a sword, covered in blood, exhausted but driven by sheer willpower, she came to me. Ah? Wait, did you lose? Liu Ji asked. Ha ha, sorry, but I can't lose. Miser smiled. This sounds boastful, but I might be the toughest calamity that this world has ever faced. As he said that, gazed upward, pointing to the blood moon in the sky. Because, even if you kill me, it won't disappear. So, the hero simply couldn't defeat you? Liu Ji asked in surprise. Exactly. A hero wouldn't be able to deal with me. It would have been better if they had the Sanctum of Arcane Arts come up with a solution. Miser chuckled. As I mentioned before, a so-called hero is just an individual combat power against calamity. In essence, it's a plan derived from historical experience. To ensure this plan works, high-level officials and the Sanctum provide just the right amount of support, like companions, equipment, reinforcements, etc., to ensure the hero can defeat his enemies without growing too powerful and becoming unparalleled. Listening to this, it sounds like a hero is destined to be discarded after use. Liu Ji frowned. Why do you think they summon heroes from another world instead of choosing a native? Miser asked. Wait, they choose a native. Liu Ji was surprised. Then why? What's the difference? Because the ritual to summon a hero is essentially a spell, but one that requires a massive cost and is extremely complex. It's so complex that no one has been able to decode or modify it since, Miser explained. The person who created this spell, the founder of the Sanctum of Arcane Arts, the greatest archmage in history, deliberately designed it this way. And the spell, while nominally a hero summoning spell, actually uses the vast majority of its resources, 90%, to create the effect known as the blessing of the world. Drawing a suitable candidate from another world to bear this blessing is just a design side condition, Miser explained. As for why it was designed this way, Miser shrugged, no one knows what his thoughts were at the time. But if you want an answer, I think you could consider the opposite. What would happen if a hero emerged from any one of this world's races or factions? Then, that faction would dominate the world. Liu Ji suddenly understood. So, from the beginning, heroes are destined to be gotten rid of. Exactly, Miser said with a smile. A hero who dies bravely while resolving the crisis is the kind of hero everyone likes. Ah. Liu Ji's lips twitched. I never thought I'd be so glad to have lost my job before even starting. Ha ha, at the time, the heroine who came to kill me had a similar reaction to yours. Miser chuckled. After learning that killing me wouldn't save the world and listening to my talk relating to heroes, I still remember what she did. This was exactly it, Miser said as he raised his staff and cleared his throat before dramatically slamming the staff onto the ground and shouting in a high-pitched voice. Screw this. I'm done. Just kill me already. Ah? It was actually a heroine. Liu Ji was surprised. Yes, a heroine, which is rather rare. Miser chuckled. Who, by the way, became my wife later on. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon gods lack a conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,671 words. Liu Ji never imagined that a plot he casually mentioned about a demon king and hero falling in love would be something he would encounter here firsthand. Miser summoned a few stone golems, and they were currently busy restoring the cemetery. Speaking of which, how did you deal with the moon later on? Liu Ji asked, glancing at the red moon in the sky. It seems very quiet now. Well, actually, it only calmed down not too long ago. You're probably wondering why I changed my mind about destroying the world later, right? Miser said. Actually, I'm not quite sure about the specific reason. My lover was a rather unlucky hero. Before being summoned, she had just been accepted into her dream school and was about to embark on the life she wanted. That might not be the case, Liu Ji mumbled. She might have had to deal with advanced mathematics. Oh, wait, maybe she and I are not from the same world. Haha, every school in any world has some headache-inducing subjects. Miser chuckled. But I think she would have no problem because she was really smart. That's true. But as a smart hero, would she have believed what you said? Liu Ji wondered. Even though you and I are both retired now, and you have no reason to lie to a fellow retiree, you were the active demon king back then, and she was an active hero. She didn't believe me, she believed in herself. Miser shrugged. She claimed to have what she termed a scumbag detecting radar and felt something was wrong with this world as soon as she arrived. The king introduced her to a prince, and she could smell the scum as soon as he spoke. Ah. Liu Ji's mouth twitched. Later, she secretly investigated the prince and found that he indeed had a bunch of lovers outside, Miser continued, smiling. For some reason, there seemed to be a hint of pride when he recalled this story. Then, using her words, those shameless bitches can't keep a secret, she deliberately got into arguments with all of the prince's mistresses and successfully overheard how the prince described her to them. Ah, I can roughly guess what kind of stuff it was, Liu Ji muttered as countless dramatic soap opera scenarios flitted through his mind. Ha ha, yes, all sorts of unpleasant things. Miser sighed. Those lovers all dreamed of becoming queen and of course wouldn't be happy about her, the official match. The prince, wanting to pacify them as quickly as possible, said all sorts of things, such as, she's going to die anyway. Ooh. Liu Ji's lips twitched. The king must have hated his son to death. No, he probably didn't get the chance to. Miser grinned. Because I later took a trip to the royal capital, and after that, they no longer had to worry about such complicated matters. Who? Liu Ji blinked several times. He somehow sensed an act of justice. No. It was more like a personal vendetta. So, what happened to you both afterward? Liu Ji asked. The hero rebelled, so why hasn't this world ended? It's because she was still a kind-hearted hero until the end, Miser replied. She asked me to kill her back then, but I couldn't bring myself to do so as I had no reason to. And she realized this little thing. Ah. Liu Ji tilted his head. Realized what? She realized that I was really just seeking revenge. Destroying the world was more of a ramification, Miser explained. Just like I didn't kill her, she felt that perhaps there were many other people I shouldn't kill either. Miser took a deep breath and went on, before appearing in front of me, she had traveled half the world, training herself as a hero. Along the way, she met many people, bad people, good people, interesting ones, annoying ones, happy ones, and pitiful ones. We sat at the peak of the royal capital, watching nobles flee in despair, and she told me long stories about her travels. But honestly, at that time, I couldn't really listen to her stories. The more beautiful her stories were, the more I could only think of my people back home, my parents and siblings. I didn't understand why they had to suffer, why those beautiful stories couldn't belong to them. What happened, then? Liu Ji asked. You changed your mind eventually. Later, people from the sanctum came, Miser said. They brought the one who colluded with the Duke to kill my family with the intention of making a deal. The deal was his life in exchange for me stopping my dark magic. And you agreed? Liu Ji raised an eyebrow. Ha ha, of course, I agreed. Miser grinned. Guess what, that scoundrel was the son of the sanctum's head at that time. That old fool, who thought he was bearing the responsibility of the entire world, handed his own son over to me, making a great show of sacrificing for the world. And so, I killed him, I killed the son right in front of his father, and in doing so, killed the last person I had a grudge against in this world. But you actually couldn't solve this moon problem, right? Liu Ji gulped. Yes, I still remember that old bastard's face turning pale when he heard me explaining the theoretical basis behind this moon. Miser laughed heartily. At that moment, I truly realized that I had reached the pinnacle of the world's arcane arts. I had fulfilled my dream and also killed off all my enemies. Then, I just laughed maniacally, watching that old fool tear off his last veneer of dignity. He tried to kill me with his own hands to avenge his spawn, attempting to destroy my only shackle and let the blood moon freely hover over this world, taking the entire world with it to the grave. But what I didn't expect, Misa said, was that when even that self-proclaimed highest authority of this world attempted to destroy it, the hero from another world became its last hope. She blocked that attack meant for me, and then dragged me all the way here, to this desolate land turned to desert by another calamity from earlier times. And then, you both stayed here? Liu Ji asked. Well, yes, Misa said with a smile. After all, by then, I had avenged my family and no longer had any other pursuits. There was nothing left for me to hold on to, I just wanted to lie down and wait for death. She brought me here, so I just laid here. Actually, I thought that she just wanted to leave me here temporarily because as long as I didn't die, the blood moon would only hover over me. By leaving me here, at least until my death, nobody would be threatened by the blood moon as long as they didn't enter this desert. I expected that she would probably leave eventually. This wasn't her world after all, and she had already done more than enough. She should have been out there enjoying her life. But I never imagined her to stay in this boring place of endless sand with me. Back then, I asked why she wanted to stay here. After all, the world was bound to end sooner or later, and she might as well go out and enjoy her life while she could. As for the world, après moi le déluge. TL note, a French expression which roughly translates to when I am dead the deluge may come for aught I care. Basically an expression to whatever happens after one is gone. However, she said she still liked this world. Although royalty and nobility were all detestable, she believed that those self-righteous bastards didn't represent the entire world. So, she wanted me to find a way to save this world because I was the only one who could possibly do it. And until I changed my mind, she would stay here with me. It's ironic, isn't it? Misa looked at Liu Ji. The last hope to save the world turns out to be the very person about to destroy it. Sadly, I had no motivation to do such a thing back then. But I don't know how to describe it. She was from another world. Her race had a lifespan of no more than 100 years, while I had nearly twice that. She truly stayed with me here as she said she would. As we spent more time together, we gradually fell in love. I made some magical constructs and held a wedding with just the two of us. She said it was perfect since she was someone who would die anyway, and I was someone who constantly wanted to die. We made a fitting pair. I spent her best years with her, watching her gradually grow old. Unfortunately, probably due to racial differences, just like the heroes in history, we never had a child. In the end, she spent the remaining time she had in this world here with me. As he said this, Misa gently caressed the tombstone beside him. Watching him, Liu Ji didn't know what to say. In her final moments, I asked her once more why she stayed here all this time. Her hair was as white as frost, and she said she had long forgotten, Misa continued, slightly lifting his head to gaze at the distant sky. But she said she still remembered traveling across half the continent and wanting to share those beautiful stories with me. But she was such an old fool. She had grown so old that she already forgot she had told me those stories countless times. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon god's lack of conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,276 words. After researching for many years, I eventually found a way to control the blood moon. As Misa said that, he raised his right arm. Then, to Liu Ji's astonishment, Misa's right arm turned into fine sand and fell to the ground. Next, Misa gently moved his shoulder, and a wisp of sand rose from the ground, transforming back into his hand, leaving Liu Ji staring with his mouth agape. The blood moon wouldn't leave this place as long as I don't die. And as long as I stayed in the desert, the blood moon couldn't harm too many, Misa said, a bitter smile on his face. Thus, I linked myself to this desert, becoming part of it. As long as the desert exists, I am immortal. However, the price was steep. This body has no sense of taste or smell and can't leave this land. I even lost my arcane powers, so when I'm bored, I can only tinker with magic constructs. After all, building them doesn't require magic as long as there's an energy core. Why you? Liu Ji stammered. You've stayed here alone for thousands of years just for the sake of this world. Yes. After all, it was her wish. Misa sighed. Unfortunately, half the world was still destroyed by someone, and I was powerless to stop it. Half the world was destroyed by someone. Liu Ji was stunned. This was the first time he had heard about it due to the language barrier. Yes, the same one who destroyed this city. With a single blow, he flattened everything in the vicinity. I think that the reason you turned into a potato was because the lingering effect of the blessing you had made you instinctively transform to avoid him, Miser explained. Your companions call him the tyrant, and the reason they are trying to cross this desert is because the other side of the world has been almost destroyed by him. That's... Liu Ji was stunned and at a loss for words. Upon recalling the sadness and worry shown on the faces of Yane and the others, he suddenly understood the implicit meaning behind this. Well, now that I've told you my story, it's time to talk about your future, Miser said, looking toward Liu Ji. I want to ask you this, are you willing to save this world, going up against that tyrant who single-handedly destroyed half the world, whom even I can't deal with? Who? Liu Ji blinked several times, me? No, that can't be right. Besides, didn't you say I was retired? Yes, you're retired, so you don't have this responsibility, said Miser. No, even if you weren't retired, this responsibility still wouldn't be yours. That damned magic forcibly dragged you into this world without any logic. No one has the right to force you to take on any responsibility. Ah. Liu Ji gulped nervously. I guess you're about to say the but? No, before I mention the but, I can offer you another choice, Miser said. Stay here, and you can live out your life peacefully. To the tyrant, this place is just a tasteless wasteland. As long as the Blood Moon remains, he won't set his own foot here. Unless you plan to spend the next few thousand years as a potato, this place might be the only safe spot in the world for you as a retired hero. Liu Ji's eyes widened in surprise. He hadn't expected Miser to propose such a plan. Which also meant to say, besides here, the entire world wasn't safe now. At first, Liu Ji thought that Miser was using a figure of speech when he said the tyrant destroyed half the world. But from what it sounded like, that didn't seem to be the case. I understand. Making such a decision all of a sudden is extremely difficult. Miser sighed. After all, it's a completely new world you've come to. If it were me, I'd want to look around. And though you haven't been with them long, you seem to like your companions, right? Especially that half-Ifrit girl. Ah, yes, I do. They're all really nice people, after all, Liu Ji said while rubbing his nose. As you said, finding someone willing to seriously teach me magic isn't easy. Yes. It's a pity. If you don't plan to fight the tyrant, you'd best start distancing yourself from them. Miser sighed once more. Every one of them, and perhaps everyone from that side of the world, is a poor soul whose country and home were destroyed by the tyrant. The hatred and fear when they speak of him is the same as that of those fortunate survivors of my wrath back then. That half-Ifrit girl, especially. In her, I see a bit of my former self. I can't keep them here, but once they leave, only two fates await them. He turned to face Liu Ji, looking him straight in the eyes. Either they'll die at the hands of the tyrant or his minions before they grow strong, or they'll eventually face the tyrant head-on. If you want to join them, you need to be prepared for the same fate. Liu Ji, looking at Miser, swallowed with some difficulty. Having just been flooded with an overwhelming amount of information and decisions that would determine his entire future, his brain felt overloaded. Miser patted his shoulder and said softly, "You have time to think. I can't use magic anymore, so I'll need their help to rebuild the city. But after this period, I think you'll have to make your decision." With that, he started walking toward the stairs leading underground. Liu Ji watched his retreating figure for a moment, then turned to look at the ruined city behind him. Hearth destroying a city in one blow. What is he, an atomic bomb in human form? Liu Ji felt his head ache. Perhaps, as Miser said, rather than fighting such a monster, living out his days here peacefully suited him more. That would be more like a retired hero. But? Liu Ji's eyes lingered on the hatch covering the stairs leading underground. Down there, a group of companions he had only recently met awaited him. Perhaps his relationship with them wasn't that established yet, and if asked to risk his life for them, Liu Ji honestly wouldn't be willing. But the thought of them possibly being ruthlessly killed one day as their faces filled with unwillingness. Liu Ji swallowed hard, recalling the moment that day when the scout's curved dagger slashed toward Yane. If he hadn't intervened and Yane didn't have a backup plan, that dagger would have sliced through her throat. Liu Ji tried imagining it, the blade slicing through, blood spurting out from her neck, her despairing head rolling to the ground. Liu Ji took a deep breath, then called out to Miser who was about to head underground. "Mr. Miser," he asked, "if I joined them, can I really change anything?" Miser stopped, turned back, and smiled gently. "No, I never said that, but there's one thing I can say with certainty. If the decision you make now leads to future regret, an endless life will become nothing but endless torment. With that, he opened the hatch and descended the stairs. Liu Ji remained where he was in a daze, gazing out into the vast desert, his eyes filled with confusion. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon god's lack of conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,303 words. The next day, everyone came together to help repair the city at Miser's request. After all, Miser had provided them shelter in the desert, protected them when the tyrant arrived, and even pointed them in the right direction should they leave. Even if it was just reciprocation, nobody felt that they could refuse his request. Liu Ji, who couldn't contribute to repairs, sat on the side, pondering his own problem. But no matter how hard he thought, he couldn't come to a reliable situation. Save the world? Who was he? He was just a potato with no special skills. How could he save the world? Hide and survive? No way. He had already been a potato for over 1,000 years, and now that he might have a different kind of life with some good companions, how was he supposed to return to being a potato again? Sigh. He wouldn't mind coming back occasionally to keep Miser company, as it must be lonely living here by himself. But hiding here and relying on Miser for the rest of his life? Liu Ji wasn't willing. That would be a very boring lifetime. What about getting rid of the tyrant? Please, that guy was like a walking atomic bomb that even Miser couldn't defeat. In terms of magic, Liu Ji had just barely started learning incantation. As for physical combat, he had barely fought twice. If he had to rely on something, perhaps if he could get his hands on an ancient dragon's prime rib or something, there might still be a sliver of hope. With his chin propped on his hands, Liu Ji sighed deeply. The more he thought about it, the more distressed and unsure he felt. He even felt a little angry thinking about it, blaming that damn tyrant for putting him in such a difficult position. All he wanted was to live well and explore this world, but even that wasn't possible. A single person causing unrest for an entire world was quite something. And from this perspective, Liu Ji did feel like trying to take the tyrant down. Too bad he couldn't, and it was frustrating. Huh? Liu Ji sighed, resting his chin on his hands as he watched the others helping to repair the city. Yane was the main workforce, continuously chanting spells to create stone walls and square bricks. Kalidora assisted, helping to lay pavements according to Miser's construction details. Mervant was helping to make objects. Being skilled in carpentry meant that he also had a certain degree of masonry skills. Osa and Jirunini were responsible for the heavy lifting, chatting and laughing as they moved an impressive amount of stone bricks. Watching this scene, who would have imagined that every one of them probably had a past filled with loss and tragedy? And compared to Liu Ji, their outlook was much worse. Miser had once said an endless life would become nothing but torment if living in regret. Back then, Liu Ji thought that Miser was advising him to leave. But later, he felt that wasn't quite so. If Miser really wanted to push Liu Ji to save the world, he wouldn't have brought up the second option. Upon closer consideration, Liu Ji realized that Miser's words had two levels of meaning. The first level was indeed encouraging him to leave because if Liu Ji stayed here and one day received news of these people's deaths, he might regret his decision. The second level, though, was advising Liu Ji to stay. If Liu Ji could forget about these companions he'd only known for a short time or convince himself that it would be pointless to leave with them, then as long as he didn't regret the present decision, he could achieve an endless life. At least, Liu Ji had a choice. But did these unfortunate souls whose countries and homes had been ravaged have a choice? Yes, some people in this world might choose to live by any means necessary, compromising on everything to survive. But evidently, those who were willing to risk their lives to enter this desert in search of hope weren't such people. If they stayed here to live out their days, their remaining lives would likely be filled with torment, just as Miser said. The only path left for them was to keep moving forward. Liu Ji reckoned that if he, too, had no choice like them, perhaps he wouldn't feel so troubled. Huh? Liu Ji sighed again, scratching his head, and turned to head underground. When faced with difficulties, it was best to take a long nap. He decided to bury himself in the earth for a while, and perhaps some inspiration might come to him. On the other side of the desert, beneath a primordial swamp laid a city in darkness. This city in darkness wasn't a metaphor. The city was truly pitch black. There were no streetlights or even a hint of light from any household. The only sources of light were the neatly arranged, faintly glowing, unknown minerals lining the streets. Perhaps these small stones, which couldn't even illuminate the area 10 centimeters around them, were considered the streetlights of this city. On the streets, many leisurely passers-by moved to and fro. These people had tiny eyes, small ears, and long nasal passages. Their bodies were somewhat hunched, and the tips of their fingers were covered with thick calluses. Occasionally, when acquaintances met, they would first touch noses and then exchange a few words. Amid this crowd of strange people, 3 figures walking among them stood out even more. One was a tall female knight clad in mithril armor, carrying a shield and a sword. Another was a cat-eared female archer with a long bow on her back who clung onto the knight's arm tightly. The last was a male Miffy about a meter tall, who carried a massive book almost as large as himself. As they walked, the Miffy kept looking around, his gaze frequently lingering on the small glowing stones along the road as if he was tempted to pry some of them loose. Nox, I know you are captivated by these things, but we can't just go around prying off other people's street lamps. The knight glanced at the Miffy, whose head barely reached her waist, and gave a stern reminder. If you want, we can buy some from a stall later. Ooh? What are you saying? Am I that uncivilized? Nox, the Miffy, shot a disdainful look at the knight. I was just thinking that their placement of the stones is uneven. By rearranging them a little, we could save quite a bit. So, you still want to pry them off, huh? The female knight's lips twitched. All right, stop harping. Let's get down to business, Nox said. As per usual, let's grab a free guide first. AFR free guide again, the female archer asked timidly. Can't we hire a professional one for once? Ah? Why spend money when we can get one for free? Nox shot the archer a disdainful look. That's why I say you are bad at managing money. Besides, a professional guide might scam us, but a free one would be more genuine, the female knight chimed in and closed her eyes. After standing with her eyes closed for a while, she reopened them and looked toward the right side of the street. Found an unlucky fella? Nox asked. Yeah, a perfect candidate. The female knight nodded. Let's hurry, otherwise, this guy might be beaten to death. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon god's lack of conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,252 words. In the underground space, Liu Ji had half buried himself in the soil and was staring into space blankly. Yo, what sort of unique pose is this? Miser squatted in front of Liu Ji. I've been a potato for so long, it's easier to get inspiration while being buried in the soil, Liu Ji muttered. But I'm afraid that I might lose track of time if I turn into a potato again. So, I decided to just bury myself like this for now. Looks like you really want to go out and explore with them, Miser said with a wry smile. Personally, I would really hope you could stay. After all, it gets pretty lonely here when I'm all by myself. That's... Liu Ji sighed, not entirely impossible. No, better not. Clearly, you can't stay here in this state. Miser shrugged. However, what I find rather strange is why you are so attached to them even though you haven't been with them for long. Indeed, I'm afraid that I might receive news of their deaths one day. Liu Ji sighed deeply. But more importantly, when I met them, I felt alive once again. Turning to Miser, Liu Ji continued, I'm not like you. You stay here in this desert for the sake of the world and for your lover's wish. But me, honestly, I was a potato all those years just because I couldn't survive in the wild. Compared to starving and braving dangers, it was much more comfortable to be a potato in the ground, soaking up the sun. I even once thought I might enjoy being just a potato. But I realized I was wrong. You told me I'd been a potato for over 1,000 years. That's over 1,000 years in a trance. I lived as a human for only about 20 years. Compared to that, I should identify myself as a potato. But the truth is, I still think of myself as a person. Those 1,000-odd years felt like a long, comfortable sleep, pleasant, idle, but utterly meaningless. If possible, I really don't want to live aimless and numb anymore. When you put it this way, I can totally understand. Miser nodded. So, in that case, why don't you just leave with them? That's easy for you to say. Liu Ji rolled his eyes. How can an ordinary young man like me, who can't even catch a chicken, go up against a walking atomic bomb? Who said you have to fight him right now? Are you that afraid? Miser asked. I also said that you have no obligation to save the world. After all, the world doesn't care who rules it. That guy took over 1,000 years to conquer half the world. He hasn't even discovered the new lands beyond the desert. If you keep avoiding him, theoretically, you could wander around outside until all your companions die of old age. But you also said they have such a deep grudge that they'll definitely confront him one day. Liu Ji sighed deeply. Wouldn't it be the end if they do? Why does it have to be the end? Miser asked in puzzlement. I just asked them about it. Aren't you able to transform into anything you eat? Your race has such amazing talent. Weren't there people just as powerful as the tyrant in your previous world? Who? Liu Ji was stunned. Wait a minute, what talent? Your racial talent. Miser blinked. Being able to transform into anything you eat. That half-Ifrit girl told me you swallowed a pure water elemental and then momentarily turned into an elemental yourself. Ah? That's not right. Liu Ji said in shock. Isn't that ability bestowed onto me by the summoning spell? Who? That spell only grants you a blessing, it doesn't give any abilities. Are you saying that this ability isn't a racial talent? It was rare for Miser to be at a loss too. I don't think so. The people of my world are all very ordinary, Liu Ji muttered. In fact, the world I was in didn't even have magic. The two of them just stared at each other in silence. After quite a while of silence and a bit of thought, Miser spoke. All right then, let's not worry about where this ability comes from for the time being. You can transform into a water elemental, right? There's plenty of water here, so why don't you give it a try? Bam! A fistful of calluses struck the frail face of a young Earthwalker boy. He staggered back a couple of steps, then fell to the ground. Chick, you should know how much you owe us, you bastard, a burly Earthwalker with clenched fists growled. The boss has raised you for so many years already. Each meal costs a crystal stone, you joined us at 6 and have eaten a full 12 years of meals. Now, do the math, how many crystal stones do you owe the boss? Pa! I haven't just been eating and doing nothing all these years, the young Earthwalker addressed as Chick said as he tried to get up and run, only to be kicked back to the ground by another Earthwalker who had blocked his path. That little work you did isn't even worth a sleeping shelter, the burly Earthwalker hissed, rhythmically pounding his right fist into his left palm. The boss kindly fed and raised you, and now you run off to join the military. So what if I joined the army? Every Earthwalker should fight bravely to defend our homeland. Chick shouted. My parents and grandparents were all great soldiers who sacrificed themselves for the sake of our race. I want to be like them. Fine, go if you want to. But pay back the money owed to the boss first, the burly Earthwalker said, grabbing him by the collar. You don't want to pay up and keep trying to run. Why do you have to make things hard for your big bro? Pa. Who's your brother? Screw you. Bunch of bastards. Chick spat out, landing a punch on the face of the burly Earthwalker, who was nearly twice his size. Despite the difference in size, Earthwalkers naturally had strong upper body strength. Such a close-range strike hitting its mark made the burly Earthwalker's head ring. And naturally, this only enraged him. The burly Earthwalker shook his head vigorously and, through gritted teeth, bellowed, You little brat, how dare you fight back? I'll teach you what it means to respect your elders today. Brothers, beat him up. With that, he threw Chick to the ground and aimed a kick at his head. However, there was a loud duang, and he felt his knee nearly buckle as if he had kicked solid rock. TSK, we've come across many unlucky fellas before, but you really have the hardest head I've ever seen, said the Miffy with the giant book strapped across his back, strolling over leisurely. Clearing his throat, he glanced around and asked, By the way, I heard you mention crystal stones earlier. Are those the shiny things along the streets? Do you guys have any on you? If so, could you spare me some? If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon god's lacquer conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,246 words. Streams of water slowly rose from the pond, snaking up into the air and converging. Before long, a humanoid figure made of liquid appeared above the pool, curiously examining itself. By the water's edge, Miser watched the spectacle with his mouth agape. Goodness, it actually formed. He murmured. And the magic concentration in this water elemental. My gosh. Could it be that 1,000 years of growth as a plant manifests in the transformation? That's right, the humanoid mass of water floating in the air was Liu Ji, who had transformed into a water elemental spirit. At this moment, he was experiencing a sensation he had never felt before, a miraculous feeling of being spiritually connected to the world and being given a green light with everything related to water. With just a thought, Liu Ji could manipulate the water molecules around him to do anything he could comprehend. Well, that said, this comprehension seemed to be related to the use of magic. Liu Ji was still too much of a newbie in this aspect, like a beginner programmer who had learned coding for only 2 days, staring blankly at a supercomputer. Currently, the only things he could do were condensing water and controlling water flow. However, he could perform these 2 tasks to perfection. Liu Ji even felt that with a single thought, he could draw all the water from this area and condense it together. However, he couldn't really do that, otherwise, all the plants in this underground space might wither. After experiencing this strange sensation for some time, he suddenly remembered that Miser was still waiting below. Thus, he looked down, though he didn't actually need to lower his head. In this state, he could sense all the information around him without using his eyes. He could sense that Miser was looking up at him, waving his right hand sporadically as if testing whether Liu Ji could see him. Liu Ji flew down to his side and, with a thought, reverted to human form. How does it feel? Miser casually tossed Liu Ji's clothes to him. It feels amazing, Liu Ji said, putting on his clothes while describing the sensations he felt during the transformation. I see. Miser nodded while listening to Liu Ji's account. This ability of yours is truly remarkable. In all my years, I've never seen anyone able to transform into an elemental spirit. Really? Too bad I'm still a novice in magic. I can't do much even as an elemental spirit. Liu Ji scratched his head. But it should probably be useful for escaping, right? Yes, indeed. If you dive into the water, no one will be able to find you, Miser agreed. By the way, since you can eat a water elemental spirit, you ought to be able to eat other elemental spirits, right? Well, I haven't tried. Liu Ji blinked several times. But what other elemental spirits are there? There are only 4 basic elemental spirits: earth, fire, water, and wind. Others are derived from these, Miser said, stroking his chin. But now that I think of it, the other 3 do seem a bit hard to consume. Aha. That's true. I can't exactly chew on stone. Liu Ji shrugged. Not necessarily. Miser smiled slightly. Come, follow me. I want to show you something. On the surface. Yang raised her staff slowly. Following her movements, a stone city wall steadily rose from the ground. Within a few minutes, a wall nearly 10 meters high was completed. Lowering her staff and looking at the perfect wall, Yang let out a soft sigh. What's wrong? Are you tired? Osa placed his chubby paws on Yang's shoulders, massaging them. Do you want to rest for a bit? No, I'm not tired, Yang said, but then sighed again. Do you think Liu Ji will stay here or come with us? That. Osa gave a wry smile. Do you hope he comes with us? No, I'm fine, really. Yang shrugged. We don't even speak the same language, and coming with us, a bunch destined to wander the world, isn't really a good choice for anyone. But he might not stay here either, Osa said. After all, this vast desert can get pretty boring after a while. Maybe. Yang said. But there's nothing to worry about. He's never called me a teacher before. Perhaps it was just my wishful thinking all along. No, I don't think so. I can tell he takes learning from you very seriously, Osa responded. Didn't he come to find you right after talking with Mr. Miser that time? If he didn't take you seriously, he would have forgotten about us as soon as he met someone who spoke his language. TSK, I know. I just don't want to get my hopes up too much. Yang shook her head. Enough about this, let's continue. The sooner we finish rebuilding this city, the sooner we can leave. I hope the others are doing okay and haven't run into any danger. Bam! Nox delivered his final straight punch. The burly Earthwalker clutched his crotch, whimpering as he collapsed to his knees, glaring at Nox with a face full of resentment. He. Don't glare at me like that. It's not like I intentionally aimed for there, Nox said, raising an eyebrow. I'm just this tall and that's all I can reach. The burly Earthwalker didn't make a sound, continuing to glare at Nox with tears streaming down his cheeks. TSK, you guys are a pain, Nox said irritably, stepping around the incapacitated thug and approaching Chick, who was still inside the protective bubble. I heard them calling you Chick. Ah, yes, hello. I'm called Chick, Chick said, hastily bowing in gratitude. Thank you so much for helping me. But you should run, you hurt them and the boss will come after you. I'll hide and wait for the army to pick me up, so don't worry about me. Hey, don't say that, Nox said, dispelling the bubble with a wave of his hand and extending a hand to Chick. Who cares about this so-called boss? I can't stand these shady thugs. Oh, by the way, since he's the boss, does he have a lot of money? Who? Chick was taken aback. Well, he has oppressed us for years and has indeed amassed a lot of gems. Gems? Nox's eyes lit up. Quick, tell me where he is, and I'll take care of these scumbags right away. In the underground space beneath the desert city. Here, try this, Miser said, placing a plate of roasted meat in front of Liu Ji. Ah? What's this? I'm not even hungry now. Liu Ji was taken by surprise. I'm not having you eat to fill your stomach, Miser said, smiling as he pointed to a small enclosure nearby. This is meat from those creatures. Liu Ji's eyes immediately followed where Miser was pointing. It was a small pen, with a bunch of small armadillo-like creatures inside. These were once a special product of the desert. We call them burrow rats, Miser explained. These creatures have one remarkable characteristic: they can consume rock and sustain themselves on the magic within. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. Time really not the demon god's lacquer conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,225 words. Liu Ji never thought that he would one day have the experience of gnawing on marble. When Miser placed a piece of pristine white marble near Liu Ji's mouth after his transformation into a burrow rat, Liu Ji's initial reaction was to reject it. However, probably due to his new form, while Liu Ji's mind resisted, his new body acted on its own. A burrow rat's vision was very poor, and Liu Ji could barely see what was in front of him. However, his now keen sense of smell kept signaling, there's rock in front of you. Go for it. Hurry up and go for it. After much hesitation, Liu Ji opened his mouth wide and took a bite as he was curious to test his abilities too. Why does rock have no taste? Oh, wait. It wasn't that rock is tasteless, but rather, his tongue couldn't taste anything. It made sense, an animal that constantly ate rock debris wouldn't benefit from having developed taste buds, it would just be torture. Thus, Liu Ji chewed on the marble like it was flavorless ice, crunching it into little bits and swallowing the fragments. Then, after a few seconds, a completely new and different sensation from anything he'd felt before came over him. Perhaps, he could really turn into a rock. Having swallowed the last bit of the stone chunk, Liu Ji took a deep breath, stepped back a couple of paces, and focused on the strange impulse within him. Then, as Miser watched on in astonishment, Liu Ji transformed into a crystal-clear jade stone. However, it only lasted for a second. Liu Ji abruptly returned to human form, sitting on the ground in a daze, which he seemed unable to snap out from. Eh? What's with you? Are you okay? Miser shook him. No, I'm fine. Phew, I'm fine now, Liu Ji murmured. Just that for a moment, I couldn't feel anything. I couldn't feel my body, had no sensations, unable to think. It felt like I was dead. Makes sense. A stone isn't alive after all, Miser muttered, stroking his chin. Seems like you should avoid transforming into inanimate objects. You look like a priceless gem when in stone form, but even using it for disguise isn't practical. Yeah, I think so, too. Having no sensation at all was terrible. Liu Ji shook his head. Just as he was about to stand up, Miser pressed his shoulder down. Wait, don't be in a hurry. Turn back into a burrow rat once more, said Miser. Ah? Oh, that can be done, but why? Liu Ji hesitated. Just do it, I won't harm you, Miser said. I want to try something. All right then. Liu Ji took a deep breath and once more turned into a round, green-scaled burrow rat. Next thing he knew, Liu Ji sensed something placed in front of his nose. It had an incredibly enticing smell, like an explosion of fragrance. Almost instinctively, Liu Ji took a bite. Crunch. It felt like biting into gravel, though Liu Ji gulped it down effortlessly. Then, a powerful impulse he had never experienced before surged. A certain strange force circulated within him, compelling him to follow the impulse and transform. At that moment, Liu Ji felt as if he had transcended. He sensed a connection with the earth beneath him. He felt an incredible power filling his entire being. Liu Ji opened his eyes and before him stood an ecstatic miser, holding up his right hand. Near miser's right wrist was a small hole, which looked like it had been gnawed on. Elsewhere, on the other end of the desert, in an underground city. Boom! With a loud bang, the door to an underground mine was kicked open. 3 figures, all clad in black robes, strode into the mine. Leading the group was a figure barely a meter tall, with a massive book strapped across his back. In his hand was the collar of a beaten-up guard he was dragging along the floor. Strutting rampantly, the small person tossed the beaten guard aside, then shouted loudly, "This is a bust. Who's the boss around here? I have solid evidence that you're involved in human trafficking and child labor. Come out and meet your doom." The arrogant shouts echoed throughout the mine, reverberating off the walls and lasting for a long time. All the Earthwalker miners were stunned by the shouts. And when they looked to the unfortunate guard on the ground followed by the 3 intruders, no one dared to move. Even Chick, who followed the 3, had his mouth gaping as if he had just witnessed something horrific. Soon, a response came from the end of the tunnel. "Who the hell has the guts to mess with Ghost Hand 3's operation?" The rough voice was full of anger. "What are you all standing around for? Chop him up and throw him into the burrow rat pit as feed." Hearing this, the miners snapped out of it. They exchanged glances, eyed the limp guard lying like a rag doll near the entrance, and finally turned their eyes toward the foreman holding a whip at the far end of the tunnel. The foreman looked left and right, cracked his whip, and bellowed, "What are you all standing around for? Get him!" But still, no one moved, everyone just stared at him. The foreman was livid and yelled further into the tunnel, "Boss! They aren't moving. If they won't move, then you move. You think you can order others around without doing it yourself," came the furious response from inside the tunnel. "I?" The foreman hesitated, wanting to ask why the boss didn't come himself, but thought better of it. He'd probably end up as a feed for the burrow rats if he did ask such a foolish question. Gritting his teeth and stomping his foot, he fixed his eyes on the small figure in the black robe. "Fine, I'll do it myself." He dropped his whip and raised a pickaxe, roaring as he charged at the black-robed figure. However, in the next second, he flew back the way he came, crashing heavily into the rocks behind. Crumpling to the ground, he curled up, clutching his crotch while foaming at the mouth. The black-robed shorty raised his small, clenched fist, looked around, and asked in a deep voice, "Anyone else?" At this, all the miners were terrified into silence. A few seconds later, one of the miners suddenly let out a cry, raised his right hand, and slapped himself in the face, falling to the ground with a thud. In the next moment, as if a switch had been flipped, all the miners started crying out and hitting themselves in the face, and collapsing to the ground one after another, each in a more dramatic pose than the last. Amid the chorus of screams and the sounds of bodies hitting the floor, the black-robed shorty's mouth twitched uncontrollably. "This is the so-called unrivaled dark and sinister black market mine you mentioned," he asked Chick disdainfully. "Why do they seem so pathetic to me? If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon god's lack of conquering otherworld starts with a game." Novel notes. 1,390 words. This was a completely new sensation that Liu Ji was experiencing. A feeling of being connected to the earth. Standing within the desert, he felt as if the whole expanse of land was an extension of his feet. Every step he took felt like a gentle stroll within his consciousness. What's this? Liu Ji looked at his hands, which had become smooth and translucent like white jade. He clenched his fist lightly and felt as though he possessed boundless strength. Well, of course, this boundless strength was only relative to his previous body. In this world of powerful beings, he had no idea how his new strength measured up. Not bad, it's almost perfect, Miser said, shaking his hand as the bite mark on his wrist closed up instantly. He walked over, squeezing Liu Ji's shoulder, then arm, and nodded. "Just as I thought, the 1,000-odd years you spent growing as a plant has accumulated and reflects in any form you take. The strength of your current body is much greater than my own." "Mr. Miser, what is?" Liu Ji gulped. "I'm having a very complicated sensation, like..." "No, there's no need to force yourself to understand. It's indeed a complex sensation. I felt the same way when I completed this spell," Miser said with a smile. "I'll get straight to the point. You, at least when in this form, are like me. Your life is connected to this entire desert. Does that mean I can't leave here either?" Liu Ji asked, startled by the revelation. "No, of course, you can leave," Miser said. "I was the one that performed the spell originally. The anchors for the desert and the blood moon are tied to me. If I leave, the entire desert and the blood moon above will move with me. But you're different. In your current state, let's say, you're like my, son. Wait a minute. Liu Ji's mouth twitched. Are you trying to take advantage of me? It's a bit difficult to explain. In essence, you aren't directly connected to the desert. It's more like you're linked to it through me. Anyway, forget it. Let's keep things simple, Miser explained. Now, you can truly leave here with confidence. This current body of yours has no vital points. Regardless of any injury you sustain, as long as you transform into this form in time, you won't die unless... Unless... Liu Ji swallowed nervously. Unless you encounter the tyrant himself. Miser shrugged. He could burn your entire body to ashes. Even so, I don't think you would die. I'd be curious to see what happens if you were turned to ash outside the desert though. No, let's not find that out, Liu Ji muttered, his lips twitching. What if I actually die? That's not impossible, right? Yeah, that's true. If you do encounter him, just run as fast as you can, said Miser, spreading his hands in resignation. This body is also great for escaping, like this. As he said so, Miser's body dissolved into dust and vanished. The next second, Liu Ji felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned around to find Miser standing behind him. Whoa, damn, Liu Ji exclaimed. How did you do that? Wanna learn? Miser grinned. Very well, I'll teach you while they are still rebuilding the city. A nearly 3-meter-tall, lame earthwalker lay sprawled on the ground, clutching his good knee. His eyes were rolled back, and he was clearly unconscious. That's all? Ghost Hand 3? What a joke, Nox, hands on his hips, grumbled in exasperation as he stared at the fallen brute. Be benefactor. You are incredible. Chick bounced over excitedly, grabbing Nox's shoulders and shaking him. The way you jumped up and punched his knee was so cool. Just like the combat instructors in the army. Hey, stop shaking me. Nox pushed Chick's hands away, giving him a peculiar stare. And the way you say that sounds so weird. Really? Chick scratched his head sheepishly. Anyway, this is your local gang boss. Nox walked over and kicked the earthwalker on the ground twice. This guy is pathetic. And he's a cripple. How did he become the local boss? Oh, that. Chick glanced at his former boss lying on the ground and sighed. It's because all the strong ones joined the army. The city is mostly left with children and old folk. This guy, being crafty, hid in the mine and avoided joining the army. Later on, no one in the area could beat him, so he became the boss. As he went on, Chick spat on the fallen boss while exclaiming angrily, then this scumbag started kidnapping us children whose parents went to join the army, forcing us to work in his mine. I was taken when I was 6 and never had a day having a full meal since then. I barely escaped to enlist in the army but almost got caught by him again. Luckily, I met you guys. Isn't there anyone to stop him? Nox asked, frowning. Doesn't this city have a city guard or something? No, everyone is fighting on the front lines. Where would we find manpower for a city guard? Chick spread his hands in resignation. The old priest from the church said that everyone must combine all their strength to win this war. I've signed up too. In a few days, I'll be heading to the front lines with the supply convoy. Seeing Chick's excited expression, Nox's brows furrowed further. He couldn't help but feel something was off. War wasn't just about dragging everyone to the battlefield and expecting victory. As the saying goes, logistics come before military maneuvers. If logistics couldn't keep up, an army would eventually starve. This city, the backbone of the army's resources, didn't even have a guard. That just didn't make sense. Nox turned to his companions and saw the same doubt in their eyes. Surely there was something wrong with this city's situation. By the way, Nox turned to Chick and asked, did the church tell you who you're fighting against? Of course, it's something everyone knows, Chick replied without hesitation, and his following words made the trio shiver. Underneath this swamp is an army from another world. A day later, in the underground space beneath the desert city. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. In the underground space, 2 figures flashed rapidly in the confined space. One moment, Miser appeared behind Liu Ji. In the next instant, Liu Ji was behind Miser. In just a few seconds, the two of them had flashed around more than 10 times. Then suddenly, both figures appeared simultaneously in the center and looked at the ground behind them. Behind each of them were a small pile of stones. 7, 8, 9. Only 13. Liu Ji sighed. I still can't win. Unfortunately, the remaining 17 are on my side, Miser said, hands on his hips and smiling. But it's still impressive. Your best score so far is 14. You're almost on par with me already. That's because you're going easy on me, Liu Ji said with a wry smile. I'm exhausted, and you look like you're just playing with a kid. Ha ha. Well, I've maintained this form for thousands of years, so I can't exactly be a bully, right? Miser chuckled. But seriously, your technique is quite good. I think you could escape even if you encountered the tyrant. That guy is incredibly strong, but he's not very skilled in technical aspects like spells and tracking. Hopefully. Liu Ji exhaled deeply. So, I can go out for a stroll with peace of mind. Yes. Miser nodded. And I hope that after you've wandered enough, you can still come back to visit this lonely old man. Ha ha, I definitely will. Liu Ji laughed. As they were talking, Yane, with her staff in hand, came down the stairs and called out, Mr. Miser? The city's reconstruction is almost complete. Would you like to come up and take a look? If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon gods. Lacquer Conquering Otherworld starts with a game. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Sally Fox audiobook.